A Democratic Party worker in Michigan brags on Facebook tens and thousands of Trump votes that they dumped them all in the trash. And then he claimed it was a joke. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, and today on the internet, we have a lot to talk about, folks. Here on the Gateway Pundit, self-described Dem Party worker, Michigan resident who bragged on Facebook. I work for Wayne Co. in Michigan, and I threw out every Trump ballot I saw. Tens of thousands of them, and so did all of my coworkers. Later on, they contacted the Gateway Pundit and said, "Oh, it was just a joke." But here's the weird thing, folks, because this story does get weird. This person had 3 accounts on Facebook, and you can see here that it says they work at the Democratic Party, and they live in Detroit, Michigan. When this post went viral, and everyone started saying, you know that's a serious crime, right? Like, you could go to jail for life for tossing out ballots, for committing voter fraud. And then all of a sudden, all of his accounts were taken down. Who knows? Now, Keel Foxton, which is not his real name, lists Detroit, Michigan as his residence, and he does work for the Democrat Party. Now, he's claiming that this is a joke, that it wasn't true. Here's a picture. You can see where they post this. Here you can see his post where he says that he committed this fraud. The really scary part is that he claims that he threw out Trump ballots and that so did all of his coworkers. Now, it could be a joke. Maybe it is a joke, but it warrants serious investigation. This guy could end up going to prison, going to jail, and you could say, oh, he was just joking all you want, but what if he wasn't? What if he was telling the truth, or he saw someone who committed that fraud? This is the stupidest thing anyone can possibly do at this point in time, where we're in this election. The media has called it for Joe Biden, but there are countless reports of software glitches giving votes to Joe Biden, fraud, foul play. Someone was arrested for voter fraud, 130 counts or something. It was a social worker, I believe. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. President Donald Trump is refusing to concede and says he will go to court. Oh, a reckoning may be coming. Now, this was his apology. They say, "I'm humbling asking that you please update this. It was a joke for my few followers. I never intended to receive anyone. I've never been a ballot counter. I've made a big mistake, and I wish I could undo it. Thank you." Well, you know what? I think it's too late. It's not a laughing matter. This needs to be investigated to the fullest extent of the law. He's a Cuban resident who's active. So he's a real person. And they say that, committing mass voter fraud or suggesting that he interfered in our elections is a serious crime. And it's certainly no laughing matter. So this was a big story that I wanted to cover. I believe it's very important, but I have a few others. But before we continue, a word from our sponsor.
Howdy, partner. The Brave browser protects your privacy and gets you back in the saddle, making it safe to surf the web again, ad-free. Even Vladimir Putin probably uses it. If you do choose to see ads, you get paid for your attention in cryptocurrency. If you're still using YouTube on Google Chrome, then my pet horse is laughing at you. Don't let the stallions of Silicon Valley spy on you and mount you like a prize pony. Download Brave by clicking on the link down below.
I would like to take a moment to remind everyone, like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's go on. So, here on justthenews.com, there's been another computer glitch, which reversed a Republican. Well, actually, it made him the winner. Another election computer glitch in Michigan reversed as Republican declared belated winner. The municipal worker reportedly submitted 2 sets of absentee ballots twice. Human error, software errors, voter fraud, it's all stacking up, isn't it? So a Republican actually won because of error. And how do you know it was an error? Maybe it was intentional. You don't really know. The point is that if finding these errors and finding fraud is enough to flip elections, then it needs to be done. We don't want a Republican or a Democrat to win because of fraud or foul play or error or anything. We want a fair and honest election. And honestly, people are going to lose complete faith in the system. And I don't think that's a good thing for this country at all. Everyone's talking about, fraud and errors. Here, for example, on Twitter with Kyle Becker says, more glitches occurred in a deep red county in the key swing state of Wisconsin. Roughly 13,400 ballots were counted by hand. Biden now leads by less than 20,000 votes. The voting system, election systems, and software All the arrows are running one way, towards Biden. I'm deeply, deeply concerned and disturbed about this election, folks. I do not believe that Democrats deserve to win. And I say this because they're absolutely insane. These people think they've won, so they've been out celebrating. Democrats, leftists. Here on Blaze, violence breaks out at a Biden rally in Wisconsin. They think they've won, and they're still committing violence and rioting. That is absolutely incredible. These are Democrats. These are so-called Biden supporters. This is what they do when they win. They riot. They have violence. They get into fights. I think it's only going to get worse in this country. And that brings us to this. Here on the Daily Mail, clashes break out between Biden supporters and Trump fans at Stop the Steal rallies across the country. Leftists are going out and attacking Trump supporters for protesting. This is what they do when they think they've won. As rival groups gather outside the president's golf course in Virginia following the news of his alleged defeat. Now, I believe very strongly that Trump will and should take this to the courts and have it investigated. I don't know what their strategy is. I've heard they want to do recounts, but I think it's more important, and they're probably not dumb, though maybe someone should tell them this. They should focus on errors, catching errors in software, catching human errors, and most of all, throwing out illegal and ineligible ballots. This is the most important part of the process. Voter turnout was statistically impossible for Joe Biden. It violates statistical laws. And if you actually analyze a lot of Joe Biden's wins in key swing states, it violates these statistical laws, indicating fraud. So I want to show you the following clip too here on Twitter. It is absolutely incredible. Here with Hotep Jesus. Me looting a washing machine because Biden got elected. It shows a newscast, and in the background are looters stealing things. They're looting because Joe Biden won? Is this America now? Look at this.
These business owners right now are just watching whatever they were able to go ahead and rebuild being quite literally wheeled out from their stores. You can see this guy who brought a dolly in order to steal, I think that's a washing machine. We've seen people.
Anyway, let's move on. Kyle Becker reports on Twitter, Georgia, 132,000 change of address red flags in Fulton County, Georgia. These votes are highly likely ineligible to vote and have moved per source. Biden leads Georgia by 10K votes as of last update. It's enough to be a game changer. This is really bad. And I think it's only going to get worse as time goes on. What you're going to see is a bitter and very rough legal battle. The media is declaring Joe Biden the winner, but the media does not declare winners. And that's going to be their narrative throughout this entire process. They're going to claim that Joe Biden already won. And if massive amounts of foul play and fraud are found, they're going to claim that Trump stole it. Oh, he stole it. No, he didn't. In my opinion, the election is being stolen from Trump. The numbers we're seeing, all of these errors, the countless stories of fraud, it is not a coincidence. People can say that it's not real and they say, oh, they're just joking, but you don't know, which is why we need full investigations. Now, here's the thing, and this is what I've been saying lately. If Democrats think that they won fair and square, then they should not fear investigations and recounts. There's no reason for them to fear this going to the Supreme Court. But they don't want to do that. And I believe it's because Democrats believe that they cheated, or at the very least that people cheated. Isn't that amazing? They themselves believe that they did not win a fair election. Now, the Gateway Pundit points out a very important fact. Because Joe Biden's numbers are so unbelievable, there's a lot of irregularities. For example, quote, we've identified 450,000 ballots that miraculously only have a vote for Joe Biden. Sidney Powell drops a bomb on Sunday morning futures. This is another thing that's incredibly unlikely statistically and logically. When you vote, most of the time you're just going to vote down the line, okay, I'm going to vote for a Democrat, so I'm just going to mark it all with Democrats. Or, oh, okay, I'm going to go with a Republican, I'm just going to mark Republicans. But all of these ballots, miraculously, only vote for Joe Biden. I'm going to tell you what needs to happen, folks. President Donald Trump needs to have all of this investigated. He needs to take it to the Supreme Court, and they need to determine which ballots are legitimate and which ballots are not legitimate and toss out illegal ballots. That alone, I think, would flip the entire country, in my opinion. That's my prediction. I don't know what they're going to do, Maybe there's not going to be enough time, but there it is. In Nevada, Nevada's Clark County elections chief has reports of voter fraud, but won't investigate it until the counting is complete. If there's anything this election has shown us, it's just how widespread this problem is. And the need to investigate is very important. Democrats don't want it because they're afraid that they did cheat. But it needs to happen because if we can't have an honest and fair election, then America is over. It'll be a one-party system. It'll be communism. They cheated this time and they'll cheat again. It cannot be allowed to happen. Our republic is at stake. But Donald Trump is not giving up. Here on the Daily Mail, Donald Trump is planning mass rallies where he will brandish the obituaries of dead people he claims voted. Yeah, no, and I believe in one of the states in Pennsylvania, I think, they've identified over like 10,000 people who voted who are dead. You know that old meme, the dead vote Democrat? So he's not giving up. He's going to fight. I support him in that fight, and we'll see how it goes. My advice would be to attend rallies, to attend protests, and to donate so that they have the legal funds they need to handle these court cases. I want to end off this video on some positive notes. The following Twitter screenshot. The RF Angle says, "This is unbelievable. Trump may win Georgia and bring Biden down to 774 electoral votes. If Pennsylvania flips, Biden is done." Wouldn't that be incredible, folks? Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Considering all the allegations of fraud, I don't think that it's likely, but it could happen. Who knows? Either way, we have to investigate any and all reports of fraud. I'm going to leave off with this Twitter post. Dr. Naomi Wolf. "If I'd known Biden was open to lockdowns, as he now states, which is something historically unprecedented in any pandemic, and a terrifying practice, one that won't ever end because the elites love it, I would have never voted for him." In the words of a famous man, congratulations, you played yourself. There's a lot of people who have no idea what they actually voted for. They have no idea what Biden is actually planning to do, or the absolute disaster it is going to be. Of course, Biden is going to lock down the country, and many people will lose their jobs, the economy will go into a recession, and this country will suffer. It's been often said by, like, the great philosophers, ignorance is the root of all evil, because ignorance leads to this. You should have known that Biden was going to lock things down. I'm sorry, but these people are they're just dumb. But that, my friends, is merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. Let me know what you thought about the video by commenting down below. You can show your support for the channel by joining me on Patreon or Subscribestar, visiting my merch store or my sponsors, or donating. All those links and information are down below in the description. Lastly, the best thing you can do is simply to share the video. Sharing the video really helps out the channel, and, it helps this fight. You see, the media, the corrupt elites, it's us versus them. And if you care about truthful information, like if you care about these issues, sharing the video goes a long way. Anyhow, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.
This next article was written by Oh Mama via the Burning Platform blog, titled, "I am done. I'll never vote again. One middle American mom rages at real-life idiocracy." I was born at the end of Gen X and the beginning of the millennial generation and grew up in a middle-class town. Life was good. Our home was modest, but birthdays and Christmas were always generous. We went on yearly vacations, had 2 cars, and there was enough money for me to take dance classes and art lessons and be in Girl Scouts. My 1940s-born dad raised me to be patriotic and proud, to love the warbird airplanes of his era as much as he does, and to respect our flag and our country is a sacred thing. I grew up thinking that being an American was the greatest gift a person could have. I grew up thinking that our country was as strong and honest and true as my dad. I grew up thinking that I was free. As an adult, I have witnessed the world I grew up in fall to ruins. I have watched as our currency and our economy have been shamelessly corrupted beyond redemption. Let's take a quick commercial break to pay some bills. Friends, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing in America these days. You can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killing, lawlessness, and mayhem in too many cities, and now suburbs. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come. The political animosity in our country is unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime. It's escalating rapidly and the crescendo will be very painful. Don't feel bad if it seems like you're powerless to stop it. We're all in the same boat. However, I want to focus your attention on what we can do to survive. Priority 1 in times like these is to make sure you have enough food to eat, if and when the system falls apart. And no, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. There's a big difference. You see, those who know what's coming are using today to protect themselves and their loved ones from the uncertain future we all face. I know you're not willing to be a victim, but these days, anything can go wrong at any time. That's why self-reliance and emergency preparedness are vital requirements no matter who you are. If you know me, you know I fully endorse My Patriot Supply. They're the only source I personally use and trust to get through the tough times ahead. You should too. Right now, you can save $100 on a full 4-week supply of delicious, nutritious meals the whole family will love. My Patriot Supply makes it easy to be prepared at all times. And saving $100 off a life-saving 4-week supply of food is too good to pass up. The future is uncertain to say the least. I urge you to go to preparewithresurgence.com and get ready now. That's preparewithresurgence.com or hit that link in the description box. Please, do it now. Tomorrow might be too late. Since we've been married, my husband and I twice had our meager investment savings gutted by the market that we were told to invest in. Now that pensions no longer exist and we working stiffs are on our own. We will be working until we die because the Social Security we've been forced to pay into has also been robbed from under us. I have watched as our elected officials enter Congress as ordinary folks and leave as multi-millionaires. I've watched my blue-collar husband get up at an ungodly hour every day and come home with an aching back that we pray will hold out long enough to get him to old age in one piece. Outside of shoes, socks, and underwear, almost everything my family wears was bought used. We've been on one vacation in 12 years. We don't have cell phones or cable or any sort of streaming service, just a landline and internet. We hardly ever eat out. Our house is 1,400 square feet with no air conditioning. I cook from scratch and I can and garden and raise chickens for eggs and meat. And I moonlight selling things on Etsy. Still, it's barely enough to pay the bills that go up every year with service quality and the longevity of goods going down. What I just described is life you can live on $60,000 a year without going into debt. At last calculation, when you consider all the federal, state, and local tax, plus registration and user fees, Medicare, and Social Security payroll taxes, almost a third of what my family earns is stolen by the government each year. What's left doesn't go far, just enough to cover the basics and save a little for when the wolf howls at the front door. I watched as my family's health insurance was gutted and destroyed. Our private market insurance, which we had to have because my husband's employer is too small to have a group plan, was made illegal. We were left with the option of either buying an Obamacare plan with unaffordable deductibles and insanely ridiculous out-of-pocket maxes, or pay the very government that destroyed our health care a fine for not buying the government-mandated plan that we can't afford. We now have short-term insurance that isn't really insurance at all, and I live in fear of one of us getting injured or sick with anything I can't fix with just a medicine cabinet. I have watched his education, which was already sketchy when I was a kid, become an all-out joke of wholly unmathematical math, gold stars for all, and self-loathing anti-Americanism. My family has to take an enormous financial hit as I stay home to homeschool our child. At least she'll be able to do old-fashioned math well enough to see how much they're screwing her. A silver lining to every cloud, I guess. I've sat by and held my tongue as I was called deplorable and a bitter clinger and told that I didn't build that. I've been called a racist and a xenophobe and a chump and even an ugly folk. I've been told that I have privilege and that I have inherent bias because of my skin color and that my beloved husband and father are part of a horrible patriarchy. Not one goddamn bit of that is true, but if I dare say anything about it, it will be used as evidence of my racism and white fragility. Raised to be Republican, I held my nose and voted for Bush, the Texas-talking blue blood from Connecticut, who lied us into 2 wars and gave us the unpatriotic Patriot Act. I voted for McCain, the sociopath neocon songbird hero that torpedoed the attempt to kill the Obamacare that's killing my family financially. I held it again and voted for Romney, the vulture capitalist skunk that masquerades as a Republican while slithering over to the Democrat camp as often as they'll tolerate his oily, loathsome presence. And I voted for Trump, who, if he did nothing else, at least gave a resounding Bronx cheer to the richly deserved smug hypocrites of DC. Thank you for that, Mr. President. On behalf of all of us nobodies, God bless you for it. And now I've watched as people who hate me and mine and call for my destruction blatantly and openly steal the election, and then gaslight us and tell us that it was honest and fair. I'm watching as the GOP does nothing about it. They're probably relieved that upstart Trump is gone, so they can get back to their real job of lining their pockets and running interference for their corporate masters. I'm watching as the media, in a manner that would make Stalin blush, is silencing anyone who dares question the legitimacy of this farce they call a democracy. I know, it's a republic, but I am so tired of explaining that to people that I might as well give in and join them in ignorance. I will not vote again. They've made it abundantly clear that my voice does not matter. Whatever irrational, suicidal lunacy the nanny state thinks is best for me is what I'll get. What it decided I need is a geriatric pedophile who shouldn't be charged with anything more rigorous than choosing between tapioca and rice pudding at the old folks' home, and a casting couch skank who rails against racism while being a descendant of slave owners. I'm free to dismember a baby in my womb and kill it because my body, my choice. But God help me if I won't cover my face with a germ-laden, Linus-worthy security blanket or refuse to let them inject genetically altered chemicals into my body or my child's. I can be doxxed, fired, shunned, and destroyed for daring to venture that there are only two genders, as proven by DNA. But a disease with a 99+% survival rate for most humans is a deadly pandemic worth murdering an economy over. Because science. Idiocracy is real and we are living it. Dr. Lexus would be an improvement over Fauci. I'm done. Don't ask me to pledge to the flag or salute the troops or shoot fireworks on the 4th. It's a sick, twisted, heartbreaking joke. This bloated, unrecognizable corpse of a republic that once was ours. I'm not alone. Not sure how things continue to function when millions of citizens no longer feel any loyalty to or from the society they live in. I was raised to be a lady and ladies don't curse, but F these mother effers to hell and back for what they've done to me, and mine, and my country. All we Joe Blow Americans ever wanted was a little patch of land to raise our family, a job to pay the bills, and at least some illusion of freedom. And even that was too much for these human parasites. They want it all, mind, body, and soul. Damn them all. That, my friends, was a little peek inside the minds of millions of Americans right now. Once again, that article came by way of the Burning Platform blog. I actually found it by way of Zero Hedge. I'll leave a link in the description box. Very good stuff. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everybody for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move! Move! Easy, easy. I'm not fucking leaving! The show goes on! This is my home! They're gonna need to send in the National Guard, a fucking SWAT team, cause I ain't going nowhere! Fuck them!
There's no greater irony than the same people who for 4 years tried to delegitimize an election result with baseless conspiracy theories, then accusing the Trump campaign of trying to delegitimize an election result with baseless conspiracy theories. You don't get to do that. You spent 4 years relentlessly trying to subvert the office of president, then cry foul when the Trump campaign demands a legally transparent vote count. You don't get to do that. You know what the mainstream media also doesn't get to do? Decide elections. The role of declaring the winner of a presidential election in the US falls to the news media. No, it fucking doesn't.
Oh my goodness! All the networks. Wow. All the networks. We have to forget about the law. Judges don't count. All the networks thought Biden was going to win by 10%. Gee, what happened?
But it's not like they didn't tell you what they were going to do in advance.
And you have a model scenario called the Red Mirage. What does that mean?
On election night, we are going to see Donald Trump in a stronger position. The data is going to show on election night an incredible victory for Donald Trump. When every legitimate vote is tallied and we get to that final day, which will be some day after election day, it will in fact show that what happened on election night was exactly that, a mirage. It looked like Donald Trump was in the lead, and he fundamentally was not when every ballot gets counted.
Biden got fewer votes than Obama or Hillary in every state except Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Funny that, isn't it? Seems about as normal as a 77-year-old man sniffing a random 6-year-old girl's hair.
Don't tell me what you have to.
Totally normal.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Google Trends searches for election fraud punishment surged in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona before election. What a stunning coincidence. I wonder why that could possibly be. Numbers of people who voted only for Joe Biden and didn't vote further down the ticket. Pennsylvania, 98,000. Georgia, 80 to 90,000. Arizona, 42,000. Michigan, 69 to 115,000. Wisconsin, 62,836. Seems legit.
We've identified at least 450,000 ballots in the key states that miraculously only have a mark for Joe Biden on them and no other candidate.
Still, at least Republican poll watchers were allowed to observe them all being counted. Oh. Still, at least we're allowed to talk about this. At least social media companies didn't implement policies months before anticipating this very scenario so they could then censor whistleblowers. Look, it's time to just accept that Biden won fair and square. His voters were way more committed to the cause. In some cases going so far as returning from the dead to vote for him. You've got to give it up for that kind of enthusiasm. If Republicans are consistently unable to capture that key demographic, dead people, then they only have themselves to blame. Joe Biden out-thanking voters. But seriously, are the courts going to save Trump? If you believe the system stole the election from him, then it's pretty naive that that same system is just going to hand it back. So let's say Trump fails in court and Biden wins.
I'm not fucking leaving!
Let's say all those 4 a.m. magic ballots were totally legitimate. Who's to blame? The media. No, not the legacy media. The conservative media. Trump was basically the first president in history to run a campaign with barely any right-wing media outlets fighting his corner. The Drudge Report abandoned Trump and became indistinguishable from CNN. Fox News was so eager to call states early for Biden, they were like a giddy child waiting to open his gifts at 6 a.m. on Christmas Day. Only Ben Shapiro threw in the towel quicker. Articles like this one in The Spectator expressing the sentiment of so-called conservatives who voted for Biden because they wanted some kind of return to normality. I'm voting to make America boring again. You think things are going to be boring? You think you can sue for peace? You think they're just going to let you get on with your lives? You think everything's going to return to normal? Nationwide mask mandates, medical martial law. Is that normal? Returning to the fantastic policy of carpet bombing the Middle East to install Islamist dictators. Is that normal? Critical race theory brainwashing, Marxist re-education and social engineering of a generation. Is that normal? Handing political capital and influence to the same thugs who've been burning down American cities for the past 6 months. Is that normal? Just because you cooked for Biden, you don't think they're going to demand more? Oh but at least we won't have to defend Trump's impulsive tweets. What kind of putridly pathetic cowardice is that? Oh, but under Biden, the country will be brought back together. He's going to heal and unify the nation. A nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed. Putting Republicans on lists, demanding, quote, pain for Trump supporters. Saying Trump supporters who want a fair vote count should be barred from future employment. Threatening to burn down and level the opposition, leaving no survivors.
It's not only that Trump has to lose, but that all his enablers have to lose. We have to collectively, in essence, burn down the Republican Party. We have to level them, because if there are survivors, if there are people who weathered this storm, they will do it again.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like healing rhetoric to me.
We get enough power in the media, and I'm gonna steamroll these sons of bitches. I'm gonna steamroll them. We're gonna slaughter the Republicans politically. Let us hit the Republicans in the face.
2016. Trump won. He's going to execute all gay and trans people and become a fascist. 2020. Punish those who disagree with me and participate in democracy. Yay, healing. Unity! You really think these kind of people are just gonna let you be? They're already back out on the streets harassing diners. This isn't just about seizing power, it's about demoralizing a nation. Many conservatives are now saying they'll never bother voting again after what happened. It's about making you feel powerless, disenfranchised, hopeless. And suddenly, COVID's taken a few days off so they can all have street parties. You don't get to attend your grandma's funeral because it's too dangerous. You get screeched at if you get within 6 feet of them. But they can all gather in close proximity for a super spreader event, and the media affords it endless adulation. And what are they celebrating? The end of Trumpism? The end of populism? The end of America First nationalism? Newsflash. None of that's going anywhere, whether Trump's in the White House or not. 3 million more Americans legitimately voted for it than in 2016. Hardly a blue wave, is it? Hardly a repudiation. Also, speaking of celebrations, the same media that we're supposed to trust with the power to anoint a president claimed that 5th of November fireworks in the UK, an annual celebration, was actually people celebrating Biden winning. Hey Siri, what's bonfire night? CNN also lied in claiming church bells rang out in Paris in praise of Biden. The church released a statement saying otherwise. Deliberately fake news designed to bolster Biden's legitimacy. Now suddenly, less than a week after the election, we have a COVID vaccine. Another stunningly timed coincidence. Now Biden has his coronavirus task force. Now he can take credit for saving the world from the pandemic. Such perfect timing. Did the Trump campaign make mistakes? Without a doubt. Pandering to Israel. For all his pro-Israel stuff, more Muslims than Jews voted for Trump. Pandering to minorities. So Trump got an extra 2% of the black vote compared to 2016. This is continually lauded by MAGA types who are still obsessed with not having the media call them racist. And at what cost? Democrats still got 90% of the black vote. Trump the racist won more minority votes than any GOP candidate since 1960. Yeah, but if it turns out he still lost, so what? We may have lost the White House, but at least the media can't call us racists. Who cares? How much energy did pro-Trump organizations waste in desperately trying to prove they weren't racist instead of using that energy to enlist actual voters? They hate you. They're going to call you racist anyway. Who cares? Whatever happens in the next few weeks, I think one thing's for certain. There are going to be quite a few more plot twists before this thing is said and done. More actual evidence of election interference is going to be unearthed in 1 month than in years of the Russia hysteria investigations. The media has spent 4 years fact-checking the president. Well, now it's time to fact-check the vote.
The show goes on.
It's absolutely crucial for you to help me fight the war on free speech by supporting me via Subscribe Star, link in description, and also signing up for my free newsletter at summit.news/newsletter.
Hello everyone, James O'Keefe here, Project Veritas Election Fraud Update. We have received 12,000 tips. We've been working round the clock overnight to go through them all. We are looking specifically for incontrovertible evidence, first-hand evidence, not just hearsay, of voter fraud in states like Pennsylvania and Georgia. We have received a couple whistleblowers. We're trying to convince these folks to go on the record. They're very scared, worried about being fired. One of these folks has recorded their supervisor at the USPS. We're trying to get that recording. We're looking for more. Specifically in Pennsylvania, we're offering a $25,000 reward if any of this evidence is used in our stories. The time is now, this week. It takes a brave soul to do this. We're calling this movement Be Brave, Do Something, enabling citizens to be catalysts for reform. These are the salt of the earth people, the people that are not interested in fame or money, but just doing right by their country. One of the greatest ironies is the media parroting this notion that there is no evidence of fraud, and as I've tweeted at Jake Tapper, journalists have an obligation to pursue truth. Wherever it leads them, that no evidence orthodoxy becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy if you don't investigate anything or acknowledge evidence. We know there's evidence of fraud. There's more out there. We know you're out there. We're looking for you. We're there to serve you. We've got undercover people right now in the Northeast corroborating this information. We should have a story shortly. If you see something, say something. Record it, send it to us. Don't be afraid. We'll have your back.
My name is Richard Hopkins. I am the postal employee who came out and whistle blew on the Erie, PA Postal Service, postal office. I am right at this very moment looking at an article written by Washington Post. It says that I fabricated the allegations of ballot tampering. I'm here to say that I did not recant my statements. That did not happen. That is not what happened. And you will find out tomorrow. And I would like that the Washington Post recant their wonderful little article that they decided to throw out there out of random.
They were grilling the hell out of me.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm kind of pissed. I feel like I just got played.
And I heard him say to the supervisor that they messed up yesterday. I was like, oh, what did they mess up on? And he told the supervisor that they had postmarked one of the ballots for the 4th instead of the 3rd, because they were supposed to put them for the 3rd.
And so let me make good on that promise right away. Okay, this storm is getting crazy, right? And it's out of a lot of people's control. And so the reason they called me in is to try to harness that storm, try to reel it back in before it gets really crazy. Okay?
I understand.
Because we have senators involved, we have the Department of Justice involved, we have
Trump's lawyers team's gotten a hold of me.
I'm not. Well, I am actually. I am trying to twist you a little bit, because in that, believe it or not, your mind will kick in.
Okay.
We like to control our mind, and when we do that, we can convince ourselves of a memory. But when you're under a little bit of stress, which is what I'm doing to you purposely, your mind can be a little bit clearer. And we're going to do a different exercise too to make your mind a little bit clearer. Okay?
Good to go.
So, but this is all on purpose. Okay?
Roger.
I'm not scaring you, but I am scaring you here.
It seems like they were trying to make me distrust y'all. And at the same time, it kind of affected, but at the same time, I was like, nah, these guys have had my back since the get-go. So that's why I continued.
Do you think these federal agents have your back?
At this point, no. Hell
Do you
no.
think these federal agents are really interested in investigating fraud?
Honestly, I don't think they are.
And in fact, you heard Weisenberg tell a supervisor they were backdating the ballots to make it appear they've been collected on November 3rd. You still stand by that?
Yeah.
Yes.
The left-wing media establishment has currently been spreading fake news, and that news is the key witness who said that he saw that postal inspectors were backdating ballots, which is illegal. They're spreading a fake news story that he recanted his statements, that he admitted that it was all false. This is a lie. Now I'm going to explain exactly what happened, exactly what's going on, And we're going to talk about a shocking data analysis of the Dominion software that may say that millions of Trump votes were either lost, erased, or switched to Biden. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, and today on the internet, we're here once again with big news. So, here we can see, the title of this article has been updated since I started this. Mailman who is key Republican voter fraud witness in Pennsylvania recants completely, in quotations, because the Washington Post put out a story saying that he admitted that it was all false. This is a lie. This is a straight down lie. He is standing by what he said. Let's roll that clip. UPS whistleblower Richard Hopkins. I did not recant.
My name is Richard Hopkins. I am the postal employee who came out and whistleblew on the Erie PA Postal Service. I am right at this very moment looking at an article written by Washington Post. It says that I fabricated the allegations of ballot tampering. I'm here to say that I did not recant my statements. That did not happen. And I would like that the Washington Post recant their wonderful little article that they decided to throw out there out of random.
So the way this story goes is this. Federal agents, absolute stooges of a corrupt establishment, coerced this man into signing an affidavit he didn't understand, and they wouldn't let him leave until he signed it. Well, he signed it, and apparently on the affidavit it says that, "Oh, I was lying about this story, guys. My memory is not real, blah, 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 blah." They've played him, but guess what? He did not recant his statement. He is doubling down, and he fully believes in what he's saying. So, we're seeing some dirty, dirty games, and this is how the game is played, folks. The government, those corrupt elites, they trick people. They force people to sign things, and all of this is not legal. Basically, you're not supposed to take in mail-in ballots that come in after November 3rd, because we got to treat it similar to the election. You vote on election day, or before then, or whatever, but you cannot vote after the election. This man witnessed USPS telling people, if you find a mail-in ballot that was mailed in on the 4th, just change the date. Change the date to the 3rd. Ah, fraud. Now, we're going to do a deep dive into this, folks. I've got things to show you, and the software analysis, oh my god, it is insane. If those claims are true, then millions of votes with the Dominion software were stolen from Trump and given to Biden. But before we get into it, folks, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit the bell button for notifications for more content. And if you like this video, please share the video online, spread this information, and let's get into it, folks. But first, a quick shout out. Introducing the Chad Classic t-shirt, impeccably designed with a magnificent Chad. I personally recommend getting this shirt in black, however, there's a lot to choose from. Get yours today by clicking on the link down below. Okay, we're back. I want you to listen to these government stooges coercing and messing with this man's mind. It's actually kind of disturbing.
This storm is getting crazy, right? And it's out of a lot of people's control. And so the reason they called me in is to try to harness that storm, try to reel it back in before it gets really crazy. Okay?
I understand.
Because we have senators involved, we have the Department of Justice involved, we have
Trump's lawyers team's gotten a hold of me.
I'm not, well, I am actually. I am trying to twist you a little bit because in that, believe it or not, your mind will kick in.
Okay.
We like to control our mind, and when we do that, we can convince ourselves of a memory. But when you're under a little bit of stress, which is what I'm doing to you purposely, your mind can be a little bit clearer. And we're going to do a different exercise too to make your mind a little bit clearer. Okay?
Good to go.
So, but this is all on purpose.
Roger.
I'm not scaring you, but I am scaring you here.
It's pretty damning. So this guy is standing by his allegations. I'm sure he's willing to testify, and the media is trying to push this narrative that, oh, he said it was fake, I made it all up. This is not true. I can already see the leftist online saying, haha, Trump BTFO, he's losing all these court cases, and now the key witness to Pennsylvania said that it was not real, this is all fake. First of all, If you're a leftist and you're listening to this by some miracle, and honestly, I hope more people do listen to this, yes, Trump is having his lawsuits thrown out of court. That is literally what is supposed to happen, because the whole plan is to take it to the Supreme Court. You've got to submit to the lower courts first, okay? And no, this is not debunked. They updated this headline in saying that he was played and he's standing by his allegation. Very important. Now, I want to show you something. We've heard a lot of stories about glitches, software glitches, swapping Trump votes to Biden votes. Here on this website, just in, a system glitch found in Wisconsin swapped Trump's and Biden's votes. And I bring this up for a very important reason. We've had a data scientist analyze the election, Dominion. Guess what is being alleged? Now, this is not verified yet. Let's look here. Here we go. Here on the Gateway Pundit, breaking exclusive. Analysis of election night data from all states shows millions of votes either switched from President Trump to Biden or were lost using Dominion and other systems. Folks, if this is even halfway true, we're going to have a constitutional crisis on our hands, and a crisis like you've never seen before. We've had allegations that Dominion has funny software in it, like Hammer, Scorecard, that allows you to sway and mess with the results. Switch votes. It's all sounding very familiar. Now, I'm going to look through this claim. I want to stress, it has not been audited yet. It is not certified. But if this is true, oh my God, let's look, folks. I got to calm down here. So this is what they're saying. We've reported on numerous events in the 2020 election, which are being referred to as system glitches in the media. Last night, we provided another glitch, this time in Wisconsin, which, if reversed, would eliminate Biden's reported vote lead in the state. Okay, so that's about Wisconsin, but tonight, we have obtained an unaudited analysis of data available for all states, looking for system glitches and other oddities in vote counts related to the presidential race only, and guess what? It shows that millions of votes were stolen or lost for Trump. I don't know how the algorithm works. This was currently uploaded to the Donald. They wrote a script. They're telling everyone that they're going to send this information and the script to the Trump team. And let's look what this script alleges. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's built to detect these glitches. So the author decided to obtain the data himself and perform an analysis of national votes switched from Trump to Biden and votes erased. The total amount of votes counted decreased by that amount throughout the counting. Now, this is absolutely shocking. To establish the validity of this data, they're saying that their source is Edison Research and that this is the same data that ABC, CBS, CNN, and NBC uses. According to their script, in Pennsylvania, Trump had 900,000 votes erased. Almost 1 million votes were erased by Dominion, and it switched 200,000 votes. Folks, if this is true, this is undeniable evidence of widespread voter fraud via a software system. This is more than a glitch. How do 900,000 Trump votes disappear? These numbers would flip many states, and all the chaos we're seeing in the election results would finally be explained. This, my friends, is a smoking gun. 200,000 votes were switched in Pennsylvania. 80,000 votes were switched in New Jersey. Florida had 20,000. Michigan had 20,000. New York, 18,000. Oh my God. In New York, 600,000 Trump votes were erased. This is extremely serious. These numbers have not been audited, but I have a big feeling they will be, and it's going to be true. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's not real, but I bring this up because all these glitches, certainly not an isolated event. If there was a glitch in one state, there's probably a glitch in all states. And I don't even think it's a glitch at this point. And if it is, it's serious. Because Dominion was used in 30 states. You know, Biden supporters keep telling us that this is over, that there was no fraud. I'm telling you, no, it's not over. And what are we looking at here? This needs to be investigated, period. One fraudulent vote is too much. But 1 million? No. I don't think so, folks. We've got to get this information to the White House and to everybody. Once again, I'm asking you to share this content, spread the word, and submit this information to the White House, to Tucker Carlson, to anybody you can think of. That is my call to action here. In another story, Trump ballots were found in a trash can at an Oklahoma church. This is happening all over the country, folks. It's not an isolated incident. It's happening. We have videos of people ripping up Trump ballots. Now we have photos of Trump ballots that were torn and thrown in the trash. Who do you think is to blame for this? It's the media and the Democrats. For 4 years, they were preaching nothing but division, hatred towards the other, and now people have partook collectively in foul play and fraud. This is disgusting, and it must be investigated. It all must be investigated. Twitter is censoring the president. Censors announcement for massive pro-Trump rally Saturday in Washington, D.C. Social media is literally trying to silence the president. Whether you believe it or not, and whether you like it or not, Trump is still president right now. And you know what? If they keep this up, he's going to be president for 4 more years. But that, my friends, is merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? Let me know down below in the comment section. As always, if you want to support the channel, you can join me on Patreon or Subscribestar. You can visit my merch store or one of my sponsors. And simply sharing the video is vastly appreciated. Anyhow, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.
You're a letter carrier? Tell me what your boss told you on November 9th.
We were told that the only political mail that will be delivered from now on will be that of the winner. In this case, Joe Biden. Other political mail from other sources and senders would be put into the undeliverable bulk business mail bin, or UBBM.
Why did Walter Lee instruct postal workers to discard Trump and Republican mail as undeliverable?
I'm not sure if that came from higher up above him.
Did Walter Lee tell you to keep delivering Biden mail?
All political mail for Biden was to be continued to be treated as first class and delivered the day it was received.
What happens to the undeliverable bulk business mail?
I believe it goes back to the plant, but undeliverable bulk business mail is essentially it's a step away from the garbage.
Do you think that the United States Postal Service should be playing politics?
No, I think that we're a delivery service, and that's not really our place. It seems to be that once they decided that there was a victor in the election, it was like, well, we're not delivering anything else but that.
Would there have been anybody else that would have overheard this, possibly? That was Monday of this week. And how many people work in how many people are we talking about who overheard this?
Well, close to 30.
If required, would you be willing to, if it came to it, would you testify under oath that this information is true?
Yes, if I was required to go under oath, I would.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to come forward like this in the way that you're doing it. What compelled you to do that?
Basically, the only thing that's going to prevent, fraudulent election and et cetera is people having the courage to come forward. I would want to say that I had the opportunity to do that and didn't do it.
Were you instructed by Walter Lee to discard Trump and Republican mail?
Get that fucking camera away from me right now. No comment.
I'm the press. Were you given those instructions?
And if you keep following me, I'm going to call the police for harassing me. Can't respond to it.
Have you been told not to respond?
It's Groundhog Day again, and the votes are still being counted and will likely be recounted in some states. And the Democrats, along with their liberal media mouthpieces, are demanding that President Trump concede and that Republican members of Congress congratulate old Joe. Here's Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson.
Senator, have you congratulated Vice President Biden yet?
No.
Why not?
How dare you, Senator, wait until the votes are actually counted and certified to comment on the outcome. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had a little more fun with the fake news when they pressed him about a peaceful transition of power.
Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. Right? We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, a minute afternoon, will also be successful. I went through a transition on the front, and I've been on the other side of this. I'm very confident that we will do all the things that are necessary to make sure that the government, the United States government, will continue to perform its national security function as we go forward.
So you believe there's widespread voter fraud, that the reports that we're getting from Pennsylvania, from Michigan, showing vote totals in massive leads or significant leads with 99% reporting are going to be overturned, and that the United States failed to conduct a fraudulent free election?
Rich, I'm the Secretary of State. I'm getting calls from all across the world. These people are watching our election. They understand that we have a legal process. They understand that this takes time. Right? It took us 37 plus days in an election back in 2000. We conducted a successful transition then. I'm very confident that we will count, and we must count every legal vote. We must make sure that any vote that wasn't lawful ought not be counted. That dilutes your vote if it's done improperly. Got to get that right. When we get it right, we'll get it right. We're in good shape.
Again, I don't want people to get their hopes up too high about how this thing is going to turn out, because the Democrats have been planning for literally 4 years to steal this, and they may actually pull it off. And the mainstream media mockingbirds continue to gaslight their viewers with claims like this.
Let me say this to you. When you know who was elected 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton didn't say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right, stop the count. She didn't say, this isn't right, I'm not going for it. She didn't say any of that. So all of you, suck it up. Suck it up like we sucked it up.
Democrats have short memories, and they may have actually forgot that they spent the last 4 years claiming that Donald Trump conspired with the Russians to steal the election from Hillary in 2016.
She didn't say any of that.
But even though the liberal media industrial complex is thrilled with the prospect that old Joe may be our next president, they're still plagued with problems.
Iranian has some new reporting on something that we talked about at the top of the hour, how the Trump administration is handling the transition with the incoming Biden team, or not handling it, we should say, to a certain extent. This time, it involves our intelligence community. Ken, what have you learned, sir? Okay. Think we lost Ken for a second. We'll try to get him back there.
But that wasn't the only hot mic moment that's raising some eyebrows this week. Here's Sandra Smith on Fox News.
Over whoever is decided to be the president. Remember, just because CNN says, or even Fox News says that somebody's president, doesn't make them president. So I think everybody wants to know that this was done properly and legally.
What is happening? Like, Trace, we've called it.
And I think we have to look into every one of these concerns.
Yeah, and I think we called it. How dare she question the all-knowing media in America? Which is why so many people are turning to social media to get their information. But as you know, just having the wrong opinion these days can get you banned. New York Times tech columnist Kevin Roose is upset that some of the most shared stories on Facebook over the last 24 hours are from conservative pages like Breitbart and Dan Bongino. He says that it's, quote, absolutely teeming with right-wing misinformation right now. When people filled the replies with comments noting that these stories were literally factually true, like the one about the technical glitch that switched 6,000 votes in Michigan, he then posted an update. For the conservatives who are mad about this, yes, it is possible for a story to be factually accurate and for it to be part of a misinformation campaign aimed at undermining confidence in an election. You heard me correctly, but let me just repeat what he said. For the conservatives who are mad about this, yes, it is possible for a story to be factually accurate and, at the same time, for it to be part of a misinformation campaign. There couldn't be a more clear example of what George Orwell called doublethink, which is when somebody is expected to accept something that is clearly false as true, or to accept two mutually contradictory statements or beliefs or pieces of information as correct. Longtime Hillary Clinton advisor Ben Rhodes is also upset that conservatives are still allowed on Facebook, saying, quote, it will take a generation to undo the damage that Facebook has done to American democracy and discourse. YouTube's corporate darling, Philip DeFranco, is also calling on conservatives to be censored. He did an entire video complaining that YouTube did not remove several reports from One American News about the election, saying that demonetizing them wasn't enough. He wanted the videos taken down.
YouTube, sorry YouTube, keep signing those checks. They have actually been at the center of some of the most significant election misinformation. If you're unfamiliar with OAN, the way that I describe it, it's like if someone looked at Fox News and they're like, that's not nearly enough propaganda. This is demonstrably false information that is undermining confidence in the election, in our democracy. And YouTube, by allowing this to spread, you are complicit.
He went on to praise Facebook for banning the Stop the Steal group, which had hundreds of thousands of members, and praised Twitter as well for censoring the President of the United States for his tweets about the election. We always knew you were a liberal shill, Phil, but it looks like you promoted yourself to social justice warrior. After Senator Rand Paul tweeted out, quote, "Your government sent 1.1 million dead people stimulus checks. Wonder how many of these folks also voted absentee." Twitter marked it, saying that this claim about election fraud is disputed, when he didn't even make any claims, he just asked a basic reasonable question. However this thing turns out, and whenever it's finally over, I do know one thing. Hillary Clinton will never be the president, ever, and I know that we can all find joy in that. But Trumpism will rise again, and we'll continue working tirelessly to save this great republic, and our existence will remind the Democrats that for the 71 million people who voted for him, this is Trump's America. And of course, I have a t-shirt for that available at markdice.com, or click the link in the description below.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from Midwestly. I really appreciate you tuning in today, whether you're on Minds, Parler, BitChute, Rumble, or Odyssey, or YouTube. I hope that you'll take a moment to subscribe on whatever platform you're watching. Help make my videos easier to find. So Steven Crowder just exposed a pretty big bombshell based on some Wayne County voter registration versus casting vote numbers. In fact, to the tune of 173,000 votes that were cast by unregistered voters. Now, there are several possibilities that would explain this data right off the top of my head that I want to say, because I want to be fair and balanced here. I don't want to just immediately spread this. Crowder went through about 173,000 votes in Wayne County, all of them having, some of these districts having thousands of people with 0 registered votes and votes coming in counted. 173,000 of them, many of them mail-in ballots. I thought that was interesting. What could have explained this data discrepancy? One, same-day voter registration. Did you have that many? Actually, I should quick look if they even have it. I bet you they do. In Michigan. Yeah, they do. So you have same-day. But if we look at 2020, Michigan nearing 19,000 same-day voter registrations. This is November 3rd, 2020. So it is a million miles away from the 173,000 votes that are shown as cast, but none of these people were registered. Here you have registered votes, and then you have like cast and counted or something like that. I forget exactly what the categories are, but the first category here is registered votes, and you see you have votes from people who are not registered. 173,000 of them. We now know that it is extraordinarily unlikely that you get to 173,000 same-day registrations. What else could it be? Well, it could literally be a delay in the data, because when you scroll down the list, you start with counties or districts in Detroit, way up at the top. But now at the bottom of the list, I don't actually have the PDF. I should have asked them for it. At the bottom of the list, you see another, like I said, nearly 200,000 votes, all from people who are not showing as registered. Now, was there a glitch in the system that led to this number just being 0 in this table? Possibly. Just as likely, is this a major discovery? Is a recount necessary in Michigan? Well, I don't know. I would certainly need to see, I would definitely demand this data be explained, how you end up with nearly 200,000 votes from people who never registered. Is it a data glitch? Maybe. I don't think it's same day vote registration, because 19,000 were reported that day. There wasn't another 160,000 same day registers. It just didn't happen. It's statistically improbable. Will Trump see this? Does he want to explore a recount there? Well, I don't know. I mean, unless he gets a favorable result in Georgia and Wisconsin, what's the point even? It's frustrating, but what's the point? I do think that the American people deserve some level of investigation into all of these states. If we've learned nothing, we've learned that there are major problems with the way our votes are counted. Thousands of votes accidentally missed in Georgia. You saw President Trump tweet out, let me grab this quick. President Trump tweeted out a video. Let's see. The Don, I think it was Maricopa County. You see here. Him saying almost 0 ballots rejected in Georgia this election. In years past, close to 4%. Not possible. Must have signature check on envelopes now. Very easy to do. Dems fighting it because they got caught. More votes than needed to flip. Republicans must get tough. Thousands of uncounted votes discovered in Georgia counties. When the much more important signature match takes place, the state will flip Republican and very quickly get it done. Perhaps. He's got a big conference today, and you saw him show this video. Nevada, cash for vote scheme uncovered. You just have, how can you look at all of this? You see Floyd County, Georgia, all right? You have somebody with just boxes and boxes of votes, and they have no idea. No idea. This guy doesn't know where the votes are. He's got boxes and boxes of votes. He's not sure what's going on. You see, Nevada had to throw out an entire election. Georgia found thousands of uncounted votes. We need a full audit of this vote. I don't disagree. If you give a full audit on the vote and Trump still loses, great, fine. I mean, it's not great, but whatever. I think we have absolutely more than enough situations here, and we're just only looking at a few states. I bet you there are states that, for example, Trump won, that there were all sorts of shenanigans going on there as well. I mean, his feed is full of examples. Juan Carlos Sopo, as I told US Today, the Latino exodus from the Democratic Party in Florida is a direct result of its leadership's embrace of socialism and the progressive agenda. With these numbers by far the highest sitting of any president, there's no way Dems could have won except through what we are learning now, a rigged election. That's Donald Trump's words. I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts. And if you look at how the Republicans did in like the House and the Senate, you see of 27 available up for grab seats, Republicans won every single one of them. Statistical sampling to prove widespread voter fraud, multiple accounts of fraud and voting irregularities may overturn election. Call for paper ballots. Rand Paul, OAN. Now, he didn't, for whatever reason, Trump did not get fact-checked. Look at this in Wisconsin. A day after the election, Biden receives a dump of 143,000 votes at 3:42 a.m. when they learned he was losing badly. This is unbelievable. Now, is it possible that you had, now we know with these voting machines, they have memory cards in them. And, you know, at 4 a.m., did they just get the memory cards from Milwaukee County and dump them in? And it was that Yeah, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. But this one data update changed the entire election. I mean, Trump was crushing it in Wisconsin until then. Again, are those all mail-in ballots? I don't know. That's why an audit is worthwhile in this state. Stay tuned. Things are going to get wild. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.
So what we were able to do is to go out to an online auction site and buy 2 machines. Less than $100 is the cost of entry into your exploitation and vulnerability research. So this is what the machines look like when we booted them up. They're fully assembled. So now what we'll start to do is dissect them and see what we can find out as far as exploitation vectors. So I've only had access to this for a few minutes. I mean, literally a few minutes. And I can already see the threat landscape of this machine. I have a DB9 port here. I see the chip for the operating system is not glued in. Pretty carefully, I can pull that out. Now what that's going to allow me to do is to leave the machine behind, and I'm going to take this chip and put it inside of my reader writer and start looking at what's installed on it and what the OS has for exploitation potential. Another thing that's disconcerting to me with this is that this is the smart card, and on the back side of this I can see that the communications cable is not secured either. And that would allow for someone to put a shim in here. If someone wanted to install a defeat device, they could put it right here and then plug it back in so the smart card would function as normal, but it would change information as it goes in. All the model numbers are on these chips, which really they should have been removed or redacted or ground down. I mean, I can clearly see that this has 1 gigabyte, so I'm assuming that that is probably on the cache side of it. We have way too much information on here. All of these here start to have a piece of the puzzle that you can put together to start formulating your exploitation vectors. So what we have here is a smart card, and this is from our Hack the Vote initiative that we did. In this particular machine, there's 3 different cards. One's a supervisor card, the other is the actual voter card when someone goes in to vote, and then there's a third card as well. So what would happen is that the person inserts the card, and we're going to see that it's not reading our card because we've yet to load it with the code. But the fact that it is detecting it is kind of interesting. We're going to look at some system logs. First of all, what strikes me as being interesting is that this is saying that it's using OpenSSL. It gives the version number, which is bad because if there are any exploits into that, then we know exactly what version it is. We can see that there was an administrator card that was inserted, and then it had the original date and time, and then we'll see down here where the date and time was set with the administrator card. Now, what's disturbing about that is that if this machine was to be booted up before the election day, someone could insert an administrator card and then pre-populate some votes. We see down here, this machine's actually done 1,434 votes from what we can tell. So with this, it's just kind of disturbing that someone could change the date to either close the precinct a few hours early or maybe pre-populate with some votes. We don't know quite what precinct this came from because it just says Stark County. So we're just going to see if we can find any other information in here. So what we see here now is 122 Myers Lake A, maybe Avenue, and that M Lake _ Can, don't know, maybe Canton, Ohio, and it says Party Democrat. So it says that there was a card created, and I guess maybe they are tracking if the card is for a Democrat or maybe some other party affiliation. So just having the precinct information, now I know what machines are being used in the precinct. So like I said, we have 2 different style voting machines, but we know for a fact that that precinct possibly uses this style. So if I'm going to exploit that precinct, I'm going to do it with this style machine. So that's some pretty good information. So if we look through here, whoa, what is this? What is this? Yeah, this isn't good here. So apparently something, let's see, something threw this error. And with errors, you get a lot of information that could help. All right, so this machine error log was written on March 2013. However, this error was thrown in 6/11/2012. So to me, I would be looking at when the election happened. Did this error come before the election, during the election day, or after the election? But looking through here, there's a lot of information that we can gather. We see things like winstock.dll, so we know there's some communications that can happen here. Toolhelp.dll, all of these are DLLs that are associated with Windows components, but what that will allow us to do, things like with TaskMon and stuff like that, is to see, are there any exploits into these sub-processes? If so, it may lead to exploitation inside the machine. We also see that it's probably the main program is this ballotstation.exe. We see a lot of those in there. So all these error logs are very good clues to what's going on. And the one thing that we found that was interesting was a little bit of clear text in here is TAHOMA. So not sure what that is. Maybe we will look and see if there's a candidate with that name or something, because that could let us know what was being displayed on the screen at the time the error was thrown. So you could imagine if someone had an exploit into this, and every time someone tried to vote for that candidate, it throws an error and says, vote tabulated or stuff like that. So all of these things are telltale signs into what's happening with the machine. And with this error message, I'm going to research further and see if I can deduce what actually happened when this error message was thrown. So what we have here is the what they call the security status, right? And so here is the key hash where you see that they're using 128-bit AES encryption, which is good. But the one thing that's a little bit on the disturbing side is that this key has expired in July of 2013, but the issuer here doesn't appear to be one of the major issuers of certificates. Not saying that that's horrible, but that means whoever issued this ticket, the whole integrity around the communications and the encryption on this device resides on where this private key is. We don't know if this is on somebody's laptop that could be stolen. We don't know if this is inside of a secured air-gapped network, as most of the certificate authorities are, and stuff like that. After looking at this for the limited time, and looking at the amount of information that this device has given us, that's not necessary. And also, all this information is being gathered without us doing any kind of exploitation. We showed you a few things that we would start looking at, but the fact is that this machine booted up and presented us this information is a little bit disturbing. This is yet giving up more stuff. So we see that it says data transfer over SSL and TLS. So we know that there's some IP-based data transfers that can happen. We showed some communications chips on there. We see that there's user-defined security keys and supervisor pins. User-defined. That means that probably these devices, these pins are set once they go out to whatever district it is and stuff like that, because it says it's user-defined. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that is worrisome, and I'm pretty confident that with the amount of information this machine gives up, then we could develop a exploit into this, given how wide the vectors are and the landscape. So the first thing I would do is have a plan pre-formulated, and since the election data is housed on a glorified thumb drive, type thing, I would look at manipulating it that way. So it would be a simple, I walk up, I have my key for this, I pop something out, I put something in. That would be the vector. So the one thing that I am happy about is that this machine was for sale online. So hopefully this precinct has updated their machines. However, this same machine is probably one that's being used in one of 9,000 other precincts around the US.
It seems like they were trying to make me distrust y'all. And at the same time, it kind of affected, but at the same time, I was like, nah, these guys have had my back since the get-go. So that's why I continued.
Do you think these federal agents have your back?
At this point, no. Hell
Do you
no.
think these federal agents are really interested in investigating fraud?
Honestly, I don't think they are.
And in fact, you heard Weisenberg tell a supervisor they were backdating the ballots to make sure that they collected the money. Just to stand there. Yes.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I thank you for tuning in wherever you might be watching, whether that's Rumble, Parler, Minds, BitChute, Odyssey, or here on YouTube. And I hope that you'll subscribe wherever you're watching, because I need for you to get notified when I actually upload once in a while. Now, there is a brand new YouTube purge that's going on, and it's targeting specifically YouTube channels that are discussing the election. It's a frustrating turn of events, but I think it's, of course, a calculated move by mainstream media to secure those clicks. I'll prove it to you. I'll show you exactly why this is happening. I'll show you exactly the timeline. Please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Make sure you're still subscribed. Make sure you leave a like on this video. Make sure you share it, and share it out on like Parler or something like that, as opposed to Twitter, because Twitter's not going to help. Let me just show you a little bit of a timeline, okay? November 10th and November 5th, all right? And here we have November 4th. We have also, where's this one? I thought I archived this. I did. Okay. YouTube refuses to remove video that appears to violate its policies. These are hit pieces by legacy media. These are an exercise in control over the platform, right? Google-owned YouTube refused to take down a video that falsely claims Trump won the presidential election and Democrats committed voter fraud. It added a warning label and removed ads, claiming we do not allow ads to run on content that undermines the confidence in the election with demonstrably false information. On Thursday morning, another video with similarly false claims was allowed to remain up and did not have a warning label until CNBC inquired after tens of thousands of people had seen it. Let me just tell you what this is, okay? This is legacy media literally policing YouTube for videos to take down. Then here's how it happens when they contact YouTube. They send an email and say, "Oh, we're running a story about how you're allowing fake news to continue on your platform, and we'd just like to know if you have any comment on that." That's what they're doing. They are literally, look, you're allowed to speculate. All right. I understand if videos are literally, spreading fake information. All right. But you're not even allowed to speculate anymore. And it's costing people's entire channels, which I'll get into. People like Mr. Obvious having their entire channels cut simply for discussing the election and not taking the corporate narrative. Look, I understand that the overwhelming data says that the election ended one way, and that's okay. Look, after all these investigations, he's, if nothing changes, Joe Biden will be everyone's president in the United States, and people have to accept that. However, acting like there aren't active investigations, acting like there aren't whistleblowers and stuff like that, and recounts going on, like stomping out any conversation of that is very dangerous. And then you see this here just from the election day. YouTube channels making money from ads and memberships amplify Trump's voting fraud claims. What this article is, and I will remind you again, what this article is this is a informal demand to demonetize channels, and I will show you that it worked. Oakland, California, at least 9 popular YouTube channels were promoting on Thursday debunked claims about voting shenanigans of the U.S. presidential race. Reuters found the channels ranging from 1,000 followers to more than 629,000 followers endorsing claims. YouTube-owned Google has rules forbidding this. Now, what happened, right? Yahoo went and listed these channels. And what happened to those channels? Not just the videos, but the entire channels were demonetized. You're allowed to question things. The media is not the truth tellers that they would like you to believe. Researchers who track misinformation say it's fueled by content creators who see an opportunity to profit from it. Over the last few years, they have pressured YouTube and its advertisers to tighten scrutiny. Some YouTube advertisers now avoid sponsoring political content. Wow, thanks, Yahoo Finance. I assume you have ads on this page. I assume you run ads too. It's okay for mainstream media to run ads on political content, but not YouTubers. Do you see what I mean there? And again, this isn't about who won the election. I'm not talking about that. This is an issue that everybody, I hope, understands that this was a targeted removal of several YouTube channels that were talking about the election. Why? Because Yahoo and CNBC and the New York Times want to be the only people that are allowed to talk about things. Here on November 10th, election misinformation continues stirring up on YouTube. Sorry, I have to take a drink. I'm pretty sick, so my throat's drying out. Again, yesterday, we have the New York Times demanding more removals, and I'm going to show you again how this manifests. If you visited Google's YouTube in the days after the election last week, you may have found a video of an anchor from One American News Network declaring victory for President Trump with the unsubstantiated claim that Democrats were tossing Republican ballots, or a clip from Mr. Trump stating on his own YouTube channel that if all the, quote, legal votes were counted, he would have won easily. I mean, or there's a video from Real Clear Politics. All of these videos were baseless and spread misinformation, challenging the validity of the election's outcome. Again, we don't even have to have the argument on whether or not this is somebody's First Amendment right. Social media platforms don't have to preserve the First Amendment, okay? I understand that. But if they are going to continue to have protections under Section 230 of our government protecting them, then I want in exchange for some more First Amendment rights for YouTubers. Those videos are still widely available on YouTube while being shared widely on Facebook and other social media platforms. Look, look, my channel has lost several thousand subscribers in the last several weeks and has completely stopped growing since the election. Is it a coincidence? Maybe. Maybe. Is a channel that was gaining 1,000 subscribers every single day for months on months on months completely stop growing the week of the election? Is that a coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe it's not. Am I even allowed to say that on this platform? Am I allowed to wonder why my channel has completely stopped growing the week of the election when for the rest of the year it looked like I was going to easily coast to 1 million subscribers by the end of the year? Is it a reasonable question to ask? Yeah, but YouTube doesn't let you ask those questions. Video is harder to analyze than text, Ms. Kaplan said. These videos are not shared in the same way on Facebook posts and tweets are. Now, again, this is another 2,000-word essay to demand specific videos deplatformed. I know how this works because some loser at CNET tried to do it with my channel. He didn't like that I made fun of Kelly Plague, a games journalist, and so he emailed Honda specifically to get them to remove ads off my channel. They've since returned. But that's how these losers work. Even if YouTube takes steps to make it harder for people to find videos on the site, it doesn't prevent a user from sharing it widely elsewhere. As a result, many YouTube videos have found new life on Facebook. The video spreading falsehoods about Real Clear Politics rescinding its projection. Right. YouTube has marked some videos as ineligible for advertising. For a video from One American News, which ran last Wednesday, YouTube said it removed ads from it because the content undermined confidence in the election. That left YouTube in an awkward position of acknowledging the potential harmful effects on the video while continuing to host it at the same time. Right. Make no mistake, the New York Times wants that video gone. They don't just want the video removed. I'm sorry, ads removed. They want the video gone. They want the channel gone. They want the idea gone. Let's take a look at what's happened to Mr. Obvious. 232,000 subscribers, has been covering a lot of potential shenanigans, right, in the election and doing well. And he shows the evidence. Now, some of these things he's covered has been debunked, but he's always given claims of, evidence of his information. Now, as of 2 hours ago, Mr. Obvious had been fully demonetized on YouTube. Now, for harmful content, I don't see a single video on his channel that I would call quote unquote harmful. And now YouTube has taken away his livelihood. Why? Because some loser at the New York Times probably sent his channel to them. Want another example in the last week? How about Josiah Rises? YouTube demonetizing his entire channel. Why? Because he was covering the election. A YouTube channel with 170,000 subscribers that is dedicated to bringing culture and entertainment commentary to its audience just got demonetized, the owner has announced. According to the video, demonetization is complete, affecting the entire channel. It came out of the blue with no previous strikes. The reason giving? Harmful content. The YouTuber announced on Twitter asking his followers to retweet in hopes of raising his profile on social media, one way that creators so far have managed to get YouTube to reverse course. But what YouTube deemed, quote, harmful, Josiah's subscribers immediately saw as just a different opinion and truth being expressed by the creator and then being suppressed by the video giant. They're scared of the truth. Anyone with different opinions is an enemy to them. The conservative YouTuber seems to agree, stating that those straying from groupthink have been increasingly censored on this and other big tech platforms. What happened to his channel is that YouTube found it no longer eligible to monetize for not adhering to all monetization policies. Reviewers supposedly found content harmful to viewers, i.e. with controversial issues. Again, this is because he was covering alleged shenanigans. And now he's been fired, essentially. With 200,000 subscribers, it was likely that Josiah was paying his bills with this YouTube channel. When you get to 250,000 subscribers, most people can live on that, who aren't like idiots who spend all their money for clout. And this is why I talk about, regardless of the creator, right? This is why I have a subscribe star. All right. It's always linked in all my videos. There's obviously a join button, which is equally as helpful. But, you know, sometimes you got to put your own mask on first. And if you want to support independent news, see if they have some way to back. And if you want to ensure content continues to flow, if you're a fan of Mr. Obvious, back him. If you're a fan of Josiah Rises, back him. If you're a fan of me, make today the day that you back me too. Because it is only through your continued support on alternative funding sources like Subscribestar that channels like mine and Josiah, Mr. Obvious will continue to exist on this platform. There is almost, I think there's still an extraordinarily small chance that I survive 2020 with monetization on this channel. And even smaller on my Midwestly channel, which is directly covering politics, which is why I support alternative platforms like Rumble, like BitChute, like Odyssey. Yeah, I don't make any money from those platforms, but my videos aren't suppressed. That's why I support Parler, because I know when they come for me here on YouTube, and they will, I'll be able to rally support because I took the time to make sure I built an audience on alternate tech, new tech, and you should too. My heart goes out to Josiah Rises and Mr. Obvious. Hopefully this gets overturned, but I can't say I'm optimistic. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.
We're hitting Michigan tomorrow, but a board of canvassers in Michigan, this happened last night, refused to certify. They were deadlocked 2-2 to certify the vote for Joe Biden in Wayne County, and then they reversed it. So this is considered a big win. They reversed it. People say, well, why did they reverse it? So this happened last night. I'll tell you what, I have a... We don't know exactly why they reversed it so quickly, and it almost seemed fearfully, but I have a guess.
Monica Palmer and William Hartman will forever be known in southeastern Michigan as two racists who did something so unprecedented that they disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of black voters in the city of Detroit because they were ordered to. Probably, I know, Monica, you think Q told you to do it or some other crazy stuff like that. But just know when you try to sleep tonight, that millions of people around the world now on Twitter know the name Monica Palmer and William Hartman as two people completely
Watch this, it gets worse.
Racist and without an understanding of what integrity means or a shred of human decency.
And what that tells us is you, Miss Monica Palmer from Grosse Pointe Woods, which has a history of racism.
Wow.
are deciding to enable and continue to perpetuate the racist history of this country.
Now, I am not trying to encourage violence against the Nazi who lives on 184 Oak Lawn, apartment number 2 in Grosse Pointe Woods.
Wow.
Keep in mind, the Hunter Biden story was removed from Twitter because of doxing. That's what they claimed, because it showed some private emails. They gave the name, municipality, and I'm pretty sure on Twitter, the address.
Wow.
Well, it's like, well, how did they reverse the decision? I don't know. If they're about to send some black bloc protesters with Molotov cocktails to your condominium complex, guess what? I might change my mind too.
Yeah,
It's not worth it. I'm a volunteer.
And by the way, their job is to do this. Their job, if there's irregularities that they have to sort through first, you don't certify the vote yet.
Well, here's another thing. They may have had reason for pause because, and we're still confirming this, so you can fact check at Twitter, but it seems that this comes from a legitimate source. There's new proof that the same ballots in Detroit were run 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 4 times the same ballot in Wayne County.
Pause the Detroit Tigers mascot? I just want to make sure I'm following along.
4 erosions of our constitutional republic. Soon we'll all be living in trash can.
Watch Good Morning Mug Club live every Monday through Thursday at 10:15 Eastern.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from Midwesty. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in, whether it's here on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, Parler, or Rumble. I'm glad that you chose to watch, well, my little humble video, and I hope that whatever platform you're on, that you'll subscribe today. So perhaps one day, maybe you'll be able to find my videos, especially here on YouTube where they get buried. Now, last night, there's been a lot of hubbub going on in Wayne County, Michigan, and the election board, Republicans, have now rescinded their votes to certify and have filed affidavits that their families were in fact threatened. This originally put out by Jack Posobiec. You can see the affidavit of the chairperson in Monica Palmer and the affidavit in William Hartman. Interesting question on page 4 about, quote, private monies directing local officials. They put here, I'm concerned about the use of private monies directing local officials regarding the management of these elections, how those funds were used, and whether those such funds were used to pay election workers. I have not received answers to these questions, and I believe the people of Michigan deserve these answers. Can we release the logs to the tabulators demonstrating what happened in Detroit? You can also see here on page 4, after the vote, my Democratic colleagues chided me and Mr. Hartman for voting not certify. After the vote, public comment period began, and dozens of people made personal remarks against me and Mr. Hartman. The comments made accusations of racism and threatened me and members of my family. The public comment continued for over 2 hours, and I felt pressured to continue the meeting without break. After several hours of harsh comments, Vice Chair Kinloch suggested a potential resolution. Wayne County Corporate Counsel Janet Anderson Davis told me that I had to certify the vote that night. She told the members that their role was ministerial and they would not use their discretion on matters like the record being incomplete. We were told that discretion was outside of the board's authority. I mean, Wayne County is an absolute mess. Now, will any of this stuff change the outcome of the actual election? It's unsure. Do I care that politicians have quote-unquote harsh words said to them? No, I don't. But when you have like this person in a Zoom call referencing Abraham Ayash, mentioning Monica Palmer's children, where they went to school, and all sorts of stuff like that. To me, I don't think that you would have to be crazy to think that that's a veiled threat, if not a direct threat. And also that is a federal felony. Well, just, it's a felony. A felony is federal. Republican canvassers rescind their votes to certify Wayne County, Michigan results. Two Republicans of Wayne County Board of Canvassers in Michigan rescinded their votes to certify the election results, saying Wednesday they were bullied into changing their original votes, and state authorities have refused to conduct an audit. As Breitbart News reported Tuesday, the board originally was deadlocked at 2-2 along partisan lines and failed to certify the results of discrepancies between ballots and voter rolls. But after the public abuse and threats and the video stream down, the two Republicans agreed to change their votes, saying that they'd promised state authorities they would audit the results. Then Just the News reported in an extraordinary turnabout that foreshadows possible legal action, the two GOP members of Wayne County's election board signed affidavits Wednesday night alleging that they were bullied and misled into approving election results in Michigan's largest metropolis and do not believe the votes should be certified until serious irregularities in Detroit are resolved. The statements by Wayne County Board of Canvassers Chairwoman Monica Palmer and fellow GOP member William C. Hartman rescinding their votes from a day earlier threw into question anew whether Michigan's presidential vote currently favoring Democrat Joe Biden will be certified. They're also signaling a possible legal confrontation ahead. Their pronouncements came just 24 hours after a chaotic meeting in which the county's election board initially failed to certify the November 3rd election, resulting in a 2-2 deadlock vote between Palmer and Hartman, voting against certification. After hours of contentious public comment and criticism, including Democratic allegations of racism and threats against their safety, the GOP members struck a deal to certify the elections in return with a promise of a thorough audit. Palmer and Hartman have each submitted affidavits. Palmer, the board's chair, said her affidavit is more than 70% of Detroit's 134 absent voter counting boards did not balance. She then voted to not certify the results. She also added, after the vote, public comment period, there began dozens of people making personal remarks. These comments made accusations of terrible things. Well, I already hit that. Hartman said that he agreed to certify the result after being berated and after being told by Wayne County Council that discrepancies in the vote were insufficient reason to not certify the result. I can't think of a more correct reason to certify the vote. He added that he was promised that the state would do an audit to the results, but later learned that Benson had no intentions of doing so. It's not clear whether the decision to rescind the votes after the fact has any legal value. Litigation is likely to follow. I mean, it's interesting because, yeah, if you did certify it, I don't know if there's any takesies, backsies. You see, as of 11/3, around 2/3 of vote went for Trump, but 1/3 went to Joe Biden. You see, yet I see more than 1/3 wearing face diapers, even outside, which, quote, the expert said, not said to do. People are allowing it. My friends don't be these people. If you are a grown adult, dress yourself, preferably without a face diaper. You only have your rights as long as you assert them. There are some pretty scary rules, especially coming down in like Pennsylvania, where they're looking to require people wearing their own masks, wearing masks in their own home. And ultimately, I don't know. Wayne County is obviously a big deal. Will they be able to undo this? I don't know. Michigan GOP, again, reverses course on certifying Wayne County elections. On Wednesday night, you see this. She had also argued that during Tuesday's meeting, you see here, if you don't have an accurate list of voters to start with, how are you supposed to know what list to tabulate from? We can't have a tradition of having these unbalanced precincts, she said during Tuesday's Zoom call. Later on, she suggested a willingness to certify the results for jurisdictions beside Detroit. The offer coming after her refusal to certify the other results was panned by Democrats statewide. In refusing to approve the result of the election in Wayne County, the two Republican members of Wayne County Board of Canvassers have placed partisan politics above their legal duty to certify election results. It is not their duty to certify results if they don't believe they're accurate. It's ridiculous. President Trump praised the effort in a tweet, writing, "Having courage is a beautiful thing. The USA stands proud. Wayne County is a Democratic stronghold, and President-elect Joe Biden carried it by a greater than 2-1 margin. He also won the state of Michigan by 146,000 votes. After Tuesday's Zoom call technically concluded and deadlock was announced on certifying results, it was opened up to public for comment, and attendees were quick to voice their frustration. Ned Stabler, a Michigan business owner and poll watcher in the county, decried both Palmer and Hartman as, of course, racist. The Trump stain, the stain of racism that you, William Hartman, and Monica Palmer have covered yourself in." These people are ridiculous. Will this change the results in Michigan? Highly unlikely. However, these fights are still valuable because if we continue to find irregularities and boxes of votes, like in Georgia, memory cards full of votes, don't you think that that's important? Let me ask you this simple question. If President Trump had won, Joe Biden supporters that watch my videos, wouldn't you want to do the same thing? Wouldn't you be doing... It's ridiculous how transparent people who are pushing back against us are. They have plenty of time. It's only November 19th. I mean, Al Gore took deep into December before he conceded. Let Trump, if nothing else, I see this as a very good thing for election integrity going forward. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.
After watching The Clown Show, we for some reason still call an American news media over the last 4 to 5 years completely fall apart and remake itself into what can only be explained as agenda-driven corporate political porn, at least considering the unfinancially survivable, low ratings drawn by the likes of CNN and MSNBC. How else could they survive? They almost have to be a massive corporation infomercial, basically supported by elite America financially, for being a propaganda machine. How else could you honestly explain getting on television pretty much every night with these idiotic cries of constant shaming of all sorts and racism everywhere? The continual drumbeat of attacks on white men and now pretty much all of the middle class in this country. Actually, not just the middle class. At some point they've guilt-tripped and attacked almost all of law-abiding Western society. If it's not immigration, it's religion or feminism or dreamed up attacks on feminism and women's rights. They constantly shame us for the practicing of our rights to bear arms. Of course, they've been doing that for years. They attack us every time we assemble publicly, both over our opinions we stress and the ways we do it. Because you see, Trump supporters are super spreaders, as thousands of free shit Democrats rob, loot, and destroy, or as they call it, peacefully protest, facing zero scrutiny for not following the local Democrat dictators' COVID guidelines. All of this, of course, micromanaged by the Chris Cuomos and Whoopi Goldbergs of the airwaves. These are the idiots that set the talking points at kitchen tables across America. God help us all. Let's take a quick commercial break to pay some bills. The U.S. has no strategic transfer reserve in the event of an EMP, meaning if an EMP hit America, very likely by an invading nation, America's power grid could potentially be down for up to 18 months. This is one of the reasons why I have a backup solar bank. The backup solar bank is the most convenient way to charge my phone on the go. It's solar powered, so it allows me to charge my phone or other devices from virtually anywhere, including the outdoors. If a power grid near me ever failed, I would still be able to have portable power no matter what happens. I never have to worry about batteries or wires. All I need is the sun. The backup solar bank is an essential tool for any prepper or camper. I wouldn't go anywhere without it. In celebration of Black Friday, order today and use promo code CR30 and you'll receive 30% off of your own backup solar bank. Get the backup solar bank at www.backupsolarbank.com. That's www.backupsolarbank.com, or click the link in the description box. I highly recommend it. Those were just a few recent examples. Over the last 5 years, there have been literally thousands of these types of lies. And lies are what they are. You can call it manipulating the facts, and you can call it opinion journalism or mental gymnastics, as I like to say. But at the end of the day, millions of Americans went to bed every night believing our president was a Russian puppet, and that should never be forgotten. Now, over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we the shunned, the racists, the homophobes, the dregs of society, the dumb folks, the ones who work every day on the farms and manufacture, who defend the country both locally and militarily, the folks who will pull over to help you when your car's broke down. We have watched our only real outlet for news completely transform into the news equivalent of a Target store, of a Bank of America branch. We have watched Fox News take the blue pill, or as Bill O'Reilly said, drink the Kool-Aid. Only in 2020, folks. I tell you what. We are going to go over one example from Fox yesterday, right after the Rudy Giuliani press conference. And after, I'm going to share some thoughts, unfortunately, about Tucker Carlson's shameful, hypocritical, and very obviously targeted opening monologue last night. Fox News, in attempts to appease their corporate gods, continues to insult basically their entire audience. This time, the insults came from low-hanging, say anything I'm told to fruit, Kristen Fisher, who was speaking from either ignorance or malice when she attacked Rudy Giuliani after Trump's legal team gave their press conference yesterday. The press conference, if you missed it, was the equivalent of an opening argument in a trial. Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and Gina Ellis each stated one aspect of the upcoming case. Giuliani described on-the-ground voter fraud. Powell described a sophisticated computer system created in Venezuela, of all places, to steal votes. And Ellis reminded people that this was an opening argument rather than an evidentiary hearing. The evidence, she said, will come later. The conference was essentially a preview of coming attractions. In a trial, first you tell your story, then you prove your story, and then you summarize your story. The legal team is at phase 1. Now, of course, that did not stop this Beltway Barbie doll, Kristen Fisher, from proving that she's a lousy listener and is staggeringly ignorant about how the American legal system works. Following the press conference, Fisher went after Giuliani with her corporate script, sounding like DNC talking points meant for Nancy Pelosi's afternoon tongue bath interview with MSDNC. Here's a clip.
Fisher, she's live at the White House. Kristen.
Well, that was certainly a colorful news conference from Rudy Giuliani, but it was light on facts. So much of what he said was simply not true or has already been thrown out in court. And, Giuliani, he opened by making this really bold and baseless claim that a lot of this alleged nationwide voter fraud that he's referring to all came from one centralized place. He called it a nationwide conspiracy. And yet he failed to provide any hard evidence to back up that one specific claim, especially when you're dealing with a claim that really cuts to the core of our democratic process. Now, in Pennsylvania, Giuliani continued to claim widespread voter fraud in Philadelphia, even though he has already said in court, and I quote, "This is not a fraud case." So what he's saying in public, not under oath, is different from what he said in court. Moving on to Michigan, where the Trump campaign dropped its final federal lawsuit just this morning after 2 Republican canvassers in Wayne County say they now want to rescind their votes to certify the election. Giuliani says they dropped the lawsuit because the state did decertify, but that is not true. The results were certified in Michigan on Tuesday, and Biden won. As for evidence, well, Giuliani kept holding up pages and pages of what he says are sworn affidavits, hundreds of them, people claiming voter fraud and irregularities, but he's declining to show them, to show all of them at least, and listen to his explanation why.
Have their lives torn apart. I can't give you all these affidavits because if I do, these people will be harassed, they'll be threatened, they may lose their job. We have 100 more of these. I can't show them to you, because those people don't want to be harassed. They don't want to have their lives torn apart.
Now, up on that stage with Giuliani was a big poster with the headline, "Multiple Paths to Victory." But Giuliani never credibly explained a single path, let alone multiple ones. So, Dana, the fact remains that the Trump campaign has yet to provide, at least in court, hard evidence of voter fraud and irregularities widespread enough to overturn the outcome of the election and to effectively challenge President-elect Joe Biden's stance as the president-elect. Dana?
Kristen Fisher, thank you for the update.
You know, if this wasn't written beforehand, or if Fisher had listened to Ellis, she wouldn't have whined about absence of evidence. Ellis could not have made it plainer that the conference was to summarize the case, not to prove it. Fisher's accusation that Giuliani lied about fraud, one version for the court and another for the public, again shows her ignorance. There are different types of fraud, i.e., common law versus election fraud. There are also hundreds of moving parts here in different states, for crying out loud. What was an issue in Pennsylvania isn't necessarily relevant to the narrative of the press conference. If Fisher were an actual journalist and not just a Barbie doll from the Beltway, she would have asked Giuliani what he meant rather than brand him as a liar. Anyways, let's get into what happened last night on Tucker's show. If you've watched my content for very long at all, you know I'm a huge Tucker fan. I see him as the only true journalist left on mainstream television. In my opinion, he's the only one around that really has his finger on the pulse of everyday America. He knows what we want to hear about every night, and he knows how to explain it honestly. No sugar added, if you will. Through the years, he's been the one talking about the teen male suicide rates and the homeless epidemic. At least he's the one that started the conversation. He's the guy who has scientists and doctors and real reporters on, talking about how worthless these masks are. The overall point being he always gets to the evidence. The evidence no one else can or will talk about. Now, I've been very patient and very observant ever since election night, watching him kind of sort of talk about fraud, but not really. You see, bitching about others' press coverage or complete lack thereof isn't covering the story. At least not in the way that made him the #1 rated show. Something else is going on here. Bottom line, when we needed him most, when the president needed him most, he sold us out. It's no secret what happened that night. There are countless statisticians, software programmers, mathematicians, all types of nerds pulling their hair out over this election, and all the crazy things that happened that night, and you could have had damn near all of them on your show. Do you really think the same audience that watched you scrutinize mask wearing and school closures night after night will swallow that opening monologue of steaming hot garbage? Really? You're just going to sit there and tell us how the media's refusal to cover this fiasco of an election is unacceptable, as you attempt to obviously, very meticulously, attack the most credible member of Trump's legal team, at least in the eyes of the mainstream media anyways. I or we are supposed to not notice that you just went for the kill shot attacking her credibility because she didn't bring you all of her evidence and lay it before your feet. All the while knowing damn well she's saving those bombshells for the courtroom because she's going to need every ounce of drama and hysteria she can muster to get any court to really look at revoting or overturning a damned presidential election, for crying out loud. How stupid do you think your viewers truly are, Tucker? We are glued to this shit night and day. Just a month ago, we watched Trump parades in Beverly Hills, California, yet we're supposed to just sit here. We're supposed to lay down and take the fact that Joe Biden had more votes than any president in history? And lastly, save your sanctimonious announcements that you're staying at Fox. No one thought you were leaving in the first place. And this coming from arguably your biggest fan in flyover country. Sorry folks, a little off script this morning. A little agitated, a little irritated. It happens, you know it. Anyways, if you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everybody for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.
America has crossed its own Rubicon because, let's be real, half of the country despises, reviles Orange Man Bad, or Cheeto Hitler, as they've come to call him, while half of the country loves him. America is a house divided, and this election will not lead to more estrangement, but irreconcilable differences that cannot and will not be bridged. If through audits and recounts, massive voter fraud is shown to be true, and see my previous video on a small sampling of the overwhelming numbers of examples, if through audits and recounts, fraud is shown to be true, and let's just say true legal votes are the only ones that will be counted during an audit and President Trump wins re-election, well, the cities will burn. At the moment, however, and funnily enough, and without any shred of irony, the foot soldiers, of globalism are already beginning to turn on one another. Now, just to preface this before we start watching this video, I will blur out a little bit of this in post-production, given the grotesque nature of big tech censorship and trying to ban any legitimate reporting on the reality on the American streets that is now absolutely and totally out of control.
They don't know where it was.
Right here, as this part will be blurred out, there is a Black Lives Matter male beating the snot out of the head of a female Biden supporter.
Give space, please, guys. If you are not a part of this, please stay away. Boo, come on. The last thing we want to do is see a black man get arrested by the police.
The announcer, as you can hear, says the last thing that we want to see is a black man being arrested by the police, even though this black man just basically beat the hell out of a woman. But that's an aside. We also have some more interesting videos of Black Lives Matter running through a suburban neighborhood. And this is very interesting because the house that they're targeting for ransacking is actually a Biden voter. And I have to say, this is what he voted for. This is what he wanted. Be peaceful. If you ask for peaceful protests, it's white supremacy. Asking for people to be peaceful is white supremacy. And there's more. There's some Biden supporters and other conservative people dragging an effigy of Donald Trump and beating it with their bicycles, kicking it, and people squealing in delight. People squealing in euphoria as this effigy is beaten. Yes, these are the kind of people that we are dealing with. But you have to understand that they've had a sniff of victory. They've had a kind of taste of it, and it's already percolating in their heads and sending them into a euphoric rage. Now, the Democrats have used COVID as an excuse to ram through changes in the voting rules and have pushed for mail-in ballots. Now, I'd like to address this a little bit. And the reason a lot of people have had problems with not only this election, but the lead up to this election is the corruptible nature of mail-in balloting. And this is why a majority of countries in the EU have banned the practice. France, for example, did in 1975, and you can see from this particular posting on August the 9th, 2020, is that why do most countries ban mail-in ballots? Because they have seen massive voting fraud from these mail-in ballots. Now, the United States is a very interesting country in the sense that things like voter ID is somehow construed as racism, that having identification just to explain or to prove who you are at the balloting box is somehow deemed as discrimination. Well, this is quite interesting because the global financial cartels and their tools in big tech have been able to not only censor the president, but the New York Times has just recently celebrated the fact that Twitter, in the lead up to the election, was able to not only censor President Trump, but perhaps tip the scales against him during the alleged voter fraud that is being charged by many, many, many people. But the one thing about big tech is that they've also not only continually changed their terms of service to deplatform its supporters, big tech has only censored pertinent information on one side of the aisle. But it's not only done that. If you take a look at what has happened in this election, the election has had big tech change their terms of services to deplatform Trump supporters. Big tech has censored information. It's modified its search algorithms to help out Mr. Biden. And what many are calling a coup, this was done to unseat the president. There has been for months the globalist foot soldiers in BLM and Antifa terrorizing, ransacking, burning and looting cities. And the DNC has not only spent billions, but literally has been raising from the dead people on voter rolls. If all of the examples of voter fraud pan out, and they have hundreds of examples, thousands, if not millions of fake ballots that have been pushed for Mr. Biden over the edge, they did all of these things. They used big tech, they censored, they used their foot soldiers to terrorize city, they used fake balloting, and they still only barely pulled all of this off. But let's, for argument's sake, take a look at what we are supposed to believe. We are supposed to believe that Mr. Biden, a man that has zero charisma, he has zero speaking skills and terrible pronunciation, and that's not when he's calling himself Joe Biden's wife or the kitchen table. The man sat in a basement for most of the presidential campaign. He makes gaffes and has no visible support. He also needs to have little women, handlers, ferry him around from meeting to meeting. He was less popular than Mr. Trump on Google Trends and other metrics. He has a crackhead son, Hunter, who has sex with family members and hookers. And I'm talking about his dead brother's wife, which is not contested. I'm not talking about others. And he has proven foreign ties. And there's so much corruption within this family. You could add the title of the Clinton crime family to the Biden crime family. But supposedly this man wins more votes than Obama in 2008. This kind of seems to be somewhat unbelievable. But then the funny part is the Democratic response, or the Democrat response is, yeah, we stole the election and there's nothing you can do about it. They would say, don't you get it? The last 4 years were never meant to happen. We tried to do this honestly in 2016, but you rednecks, you racists, you misogynists, you ists and isms couldn't just shut up and step down. Well, we're now going to shut you up, and you'll never have power in this country again. It's over. You lost. Go home. Get over it. Again, this is reiterated in the mainstream media and big tech, as well as social media, as they are playing rearguard by deleting anyone that has questions about the validity of what happened earlier this week. Now, if voter fraud and allegations were proven beyond a reasonable doubt and thrust into the public spotlight, a question I have for you is, do you think that the common Democrat voter would even care, even if they could see the reality of this? Would they convince themselves that this isn't to beat Would they convince themselves that it's all right, this kind of corruption? Excuse me, that's one of my pigeons again flying around looking for a little of attention. Would the average Democrat convince themselves that this kind of corruption is okay so long as Orange Man Bad was defeated? I think a fair portion of them would, and would hold this mindset. But you have to question what has been lost and what has been stolen. In his presumptive acceptance as president-elect, Joe Biden called America a beacon for the world. He absolutely misses the reality of the American empire, of the Pax Americana, which is in steep decline. The entire planet now regards America as being Venezuela tier with regards to its electoral system. 95% of politicians in D.C. are former lawyers, and when they're done with their political careers, most of them end up on K Street. There are now in most every large American city homeless people on every corner, educated young people working at McJobs like Starbucks or Walmart. There's record unemployment, and this is coupled with the chaos of COVID and the response to it. There is visible poverty, and that visible poverty is growing by the day. And studies show unprecedented collapse in social conditions in the United States, from indicators of human health to civic infrastructure. Well, these are all hallmarks of past empires undergoing collapse. The country also has a cartel of corrupt elites that are openly selling out to China. A vast majority of the for-profit mainstream media, which is owned by multinational corporations, and in turn, vast pools of wealth, is attempting everything to regain control of the social narrative, and now with the help of big tech, move to censor any kind of dissent. My pigeon again. That said, America is becoming what Donald Trump said, a shithole. And it's becoming a shithole with electricity at this point. Now, I understand for many, hard truths are much more difficult to accept than pleasant fantasy. But this is the reality going into the 2020s. Now, getting back to Mr. Donald Trump, in a lot of ways, he dug his own grave and has put himself in this position, not only by not anticipating this electoral fraud, but also by letting the COVID scam go on for so long. He also allowed big tech to platform and censor his entire support base, and all he ever did was continually state that he was monitoring the situation. And now they're censoring him exactly the same way. Also, what we now have are fanatics like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democrat congresswoman from New York. And now she is calling for lists to be made, lists of people that supported Trump during his time in office. And she wants these people to burn. She wants them to not be able to live in, quote, polite society. She doesn't want them to be able to financially support themselves or feed their children. She wants these people destroyed. Now, one thing you have to understand as well is that no matter where this election goes, no matter where this election goes, it will be toxic for the country. However, what is potentially fatal, not toxic, what is potentially fatal for America is half of the populace believes that the elections are now hopelessly rigged and they're eternally screwed. And now, however this shakes out in the courts, it's exactly what half of the country is going to think. Now, this man here, Oswald Spengler, he wrote a book in 1918 called The Decline of the West. And he broke a civilization's trajectory into 4 separate seasons. And he believed that the Western world was in its twilight, in the winter of its life cycle. He also believed that empires or civilizations last about 250 years or 10 generations. And he believed that now, our time, that the age of decadence is upon us. And he described it as our civilization as one that was preoccupied with frivolity, hedonism, cynicism, pessimism, narcissism, consumerism, materialism, nihilism, fatalism, fanaticism, and other negative behaviors and attitudes, and that these were attitudes that were fused into our population. Now, the implosion of the common political ground within society fatally undermines the trust in governing institutions, and this includes not only the government, but also organs such as the media and academia. It was the French thinker Montesquieu, who was a great historian of Rome and Greece, who pointed out that when election integrity is destroyed in a republic, the republic is finished. Let me repeat that. When election integrity is destroyed in a republic, the republic is finished. Basically, when people do not believe in their institutions anymore, that society is not long for this earth. And a recent article by the Slovenian philosopher, a prominent Slovenian philosopher, I believe his name is pronounced Zizek. I've read quite a bit of his op-eds in several different newspapers, but he has argued recently that the functioning limits of liberal democracy have been reached. So the functioning limits of liberal democracy have been reached in the US, and that something radically different is required. But there is thus far little consensus among the citizens of the United States about what that entails, what that will entail. And what needs to be understood is that the decline of the United States is a thoroughly bipartisan affair. And the polarization, for the most part, in the American body politic is exacerbated by the corporate mainstream media, as well as big tech and social media. The lifestyle of the current United States of America seems to be coming to its inevitable conclusion, as all empires do. What comes next is what we need to concern ourselves with, not whether 8-year-olds should be allowed to transition, or if people are allowed to use certain words, or if misogynists are looking at women's assets. The end is only the beginning of something new, perhaps a more devolved country. Now, I'm going to just spitball here, but I think perhaps a more devolved country, one that's less federalized, where people can live, where they can feel most agreeable with other people who are like-minded, might be the solution, without DC telling everyone what they need to believe or how they need to live. A return to the way America was framed and was meant to be. States that were united, but were still sovereign. Perhaps the removal of the Supreme Court, which has become little more than a House of Lords that legislates from the bench. Again, I'm just spitballing here, but I think ideas are necessary because, as I said, this is the end, and the end is a beginning of something new. Tell me what you think by leaving your ideas and your suggestions or your comments in the comment section below. And also, again, I want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, even as depressing as it may seem. And if you like this kind of material and this kind of analysis, please consider subscribing, and I will see you again soon. Take care, and bye-bye.
Votes are still being counted in Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, but the Democrats aren't interested in counting votes or having a fair and transparent election, so they continue to demand that President Trump concede the election. This despite numerous possible recounts and whistleblowers coming forward with some very unsettling stories. On Monday, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany held a press conference to inform the American people about what was going on, but the media, including Neil Cavuto at Fox News, didn't want them to hear it.
We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to
Well, I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this. I want to make sure that maybe they do have something to back that up, but that's an explosive charge to make, that the other side is effectively rigging and cheating. If she does bring proof of that, of course, we'll take you back. So far, she has started saying right at the outset, welcoming fraud, welcoming illegal voting. Not so fast.
Maybe you should have actually watched the press conference before commenting on it, Mr. Cavuto. You might have learned that a whistleblower in Nevada signed a sworn affidavit saying that they witnessed poll workers fabricating proof of residence so that people could vote in the state when they weren't supposed to. Another affidavit by a poll worker in Detroit says that she directly observed voters being coached by other poll workers to pick Joe Biden. And now Attorney General Bill Barr has finally directed prosecutors to investigate what it is that's going on. But MSNBC's Chris Hayes thinks that wanting a transparent vote count to ensure that there's no voter fraud is ruining democracy. He tweeted out sarcastically, quote, "Yes, we need more lectures about the intolerant left as the actual president and his party try to light American democracy on fire."
In a democracy, you cannot ignore honest questions from citizens. You're not allowed. You can't dismiss them out of hand as crazy or immoral for asking. You can't just cut away from coverage you don't like. You can't simply tell people to accept an outcome, because force doesn't work in a democracy. That's dictatorship. In a free society, you have to convince the public of your legitimacy. You have to win them over with reason. Democracy is always a voluntary arrangement.
Did you catch that? You can't just cut away from coverage you don't like, calling out Neil Cavuto. Like I said, Tucker has never let us down. Meanwhile, MSNBC applauded Neil Cavuto for cutting off Kayleigh McEnany's press conference, but of course they still weren't happy.
Well, I'm happy Neil Cavuto did that, but he did not go far enough. We ought to stop saying that if there is evidence, there is no evidence, right? This is a fantasy, right? We're watching a conspiracy theory be woven in real time, and every person in this country should be outraged over it.
And while the Democrats are demanding that President Trump concede immediately, Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden to never concede under any circumstances if he was the perceived loser.
You know, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch.
To be clear, Joe Biden is not the winner of the 2020 presidential election, at least at this point. He is the projected winner. The liberal media projected that he is going to win, but none of the voting counts have been certified, and like I said, there are still numerous states that are still counting.
First, let me get your reaction to the media declaring Joe Biden the 46th president, and tell us about the evidence that you have of dead people voting in this past election.
Well, number one, this is a contested election. The media doesn't decide who becomes president. If they did, you would never have a Republican president for forever. So we're discounting them.
Well, the media has never deceived us before. Why would they do it now? They never make any mistakes either. Like that time they called Florida for Al Gore in the 2000 election.
A big call to make. CNN announces that we call Florida in the Al Gore column. This is a state both campaigns desperately wanted to win.
Of course, they later retracted that, and then Al Gore, the Democrat Party, and the entire liberal media industrial complex demanded that all the votes be counted and closely monitored for legal votes to be certified.
There is no question, or very little question, that Al Gore won the votes cast in the state of Florida. The question is, will he win the votes counted?
But this race is simply too close to call. And until the recount is concluded and the results in Florida become official, our campaign continues.
Bill Daley, the chairman of the Gore campaign, you just heard it.
We don't just have egg in our face, we've got omelet all over our suits.
To be clear, I don't want people getting their hopes up too high that this is going to turn out our way, because this is definitely an uphill battle, but it's a battle that we have to fight for the sake of the Republic. But speaking of getting one's hopes up, Dr. Fauci now says that the coronavirus vaccine will probably be here in about 2 weeks, after repeatedly saying that it wouldn't be here until sometime next year, and that President Trump was wrong for saying that it would be ready around the time of the election.
And just hang in there, because the vaccine that we'll talk about in a moment is something that is really quite promising now, and it's right around the corner.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you need national leadership to do that.
You need national leadership to do that. Only Joe Biden can distribute the vaccine.
Well, there are challenges there. There are logistic challenges, supply chain challenges. Right now, we know that what the company will do, very likely, in fact, I'm certain they'll be doing it, is putting in soon, within the next week and a half or so, for an emergency use authorization and ultimately for ultimate approval of the vaccine, which means if that goes along smoothly, that we may have doses that we're able to give to people by the end of November, the beginning of December.
But Fredo's brother, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, is not so excited. He was hoping the vaccine wouldn't be ready until next year, so Joe Biden could take credit for it.
Well, it's good news, bad news, George. The good news is the Pfizer tests look good and we'll have a vaccine shortly. The bad news is that it's about 2 months before Joe Biden takes over, and that means this administration is going to be implementing a vaccine plan.
I can see it now. If we don't stop the steal and Joe Biden gets into the White House, they're going to literally claim that he ended the coronavirus pandemic. Maybe we should all follow this guy's lead, who is the hero of the day.
We are not prepared to give that number. The Biden crime family stealing the election. The media is covering it up. The Biden crime family stealing this election. The media is covering it up. The Biden crime family stealing this election. The media is covering it up.
And everyone on the Democrat side should welcome this, unless they're actually cheating. Because if they're winning these things fair and square, then everyone would love to know that, because me as an American, I'd like to know that, because I've lost all faith in the process.
Here we have Biden supporters saying that now they want unity. In a video from the BBC, U.S. election, Biden supporters message to Trump voters, BBC News. And the look on her face is basically the look on mine. There will be no unity. There will be no acceptance. We're going to go over this video, this response, and we're going to talk about Joe Biden, his alleged victory. The media has declared him the winner, although certain states are facing legal challenges, recounts, audits, and it's certainly not final yet. The results are not certified. But Biden supporters are already celebrating on the streets. You've got people like AOC saying, we're going to put Trump supporters in camps on a list and, punish them? Punish all Trump supporters for daring to vote for the big bad orange man. Let's see what these people have to say. I'm going to respond.
We have a lot of work to do as a country, and I think we're going to have to do some serious reconciliation.
So they want reconciliation after 4 years of absolute torture, endless attacks, and literally them deplatforming people, destroying people's lives, levying false allegations, calling people names, and demonizing conservatives, libertarians, and liberals who all voted for Trump or supported the conservative cause. And you want unity and reconciliation? Are you kidding me? This is kind of like when a husband, hits his wife and then says, hey, suck it up, buttercup. We gotta get along now. I don't think so.
I would say to my Republican friends that it's not the extremists in any party that is going to rule the legislation of this country.
Okay, I'm going to stop him right there because Joe Biden and the Democrats have literally swung far left. They've said that they want to institute socialism, communism. They want a national lockdown, which is authoritarian and is going to destroy the economy and cost people their jobs and perhaps even lives. You even had people on Twitter saying, if I had known that Joe Biden was going to lock down the country again, I wouldn't have voted. This is scary. Well, what did you expect? You voted for it. See, these people literally have no idea what they voted for and no idea the pain and suffering that's coming if Joe Biden takes this election, many of which believe is being stolen due to fraud, due to all these reports, due to foul play, and due to software errors that all favor Biden and not Trump. Oh ho ho. Actually, I'm going to show you something. Here on Zero Hedge, it defies all logic. Scientist finds telltale signs of election fraud after analyzing mail-in ballot data. So we have a lot of reports online right now, all about fraud and analyzing the data. The voting defies all logic. We're seeing a bunch of red flags for fraud. And I have a picture here that's a little bit simpler to understand than the data science to kind of sum this up. So I want you to take a look at the following. This is the State Department's example and reasoning for how the Ukraine committed voter fraud. Let's take a look at these and let's see if this voter fraud is the same as what we're seeing in the United States. Classic signs of undeniable circumstantial evidence that there's been fraud. Illegal use of absentee ballots. Yeah, well, yes, there's been a lot of allegations and a lot of reports that people have used absentee ballots. We had reports, I believe just the other day, of a woman who said she went to vote and then they said, no, sorry, your vote's rejected. She was a Republican, I believe, and she was trying to vote for Trump, and then they told her, no, you've already voted. What happened there? Somebody took her absentee ballot, intercepted it in the mail, and voted for her. Her vote was stolen. Now, this is a big one, folks. Opposition observers ejected. What did we see in Pennsylvania and other places? Yes, Republican poll watchers were not allowed to watch the count. And overnight, magically, Joe Biden gained huge leads. That is a massive sign and red flag for voter fraud. North Korean-style turnout in the East. They say that if there's turnout more than 95%, this is one of the biggest indicators of voter fraud. Do you know how many places had turnout over 100%? Let's look. Here we are on judicialwatch.org, a bipartisan website, I believe, that it watches for impropriety, for wrongdoing, corruption. It says, new Judicial Watch study finds 353 U.S. counties in 29 states with voter rates exceeding 100%. This is a massive sign of fraud. You don't have to like it. You don't have to accept it. But this is a huge sign of fraud. And this was released in October 16th. Interesting, isn't it? Before there was even an election, they already reported that the voter registration rates were abnormal. And remember, we had early voting. This could be a smoking gun. Other signs of fraud include mobile ballot box fraud, computer data altered, and we've seen several reports of computer glitches, even switching votes from Biden to Trump, and reports of opposition fraud. There's a video circulating right now where if you're watching the news and all of a sudden Trump votes switch to Biden votes. Software error? Perhaps. Looks like fraud to me.
If you voted for Trump, sorry about it. It's time for this country to heal, and it is time to put this racist agenda behind us.
So you can see the audacity of these people. They don't actually mean any of this. They don't want healing. They don't want unity. They still think that you're a racist bigot if you voted for the orange man. And they're still insulting the president. The guy's not even wearing his mask properly, by the way. And they want us to be peaceful? They think we're just going to forget how they burned down cities, how they dragged people across the ground, how they attacked people, how they've threatened people, and how they continue to threaten people. Even when they've won, they've rioted, they've broken out into violence, and they're currently talking about making lists of Trump supporters and conservatives. There's websites where everyone who donated to Trump is online. On their website, you can find it. These people are planning to put us in gulags and camps. We'll see about that. It's not over yet. Donald Trump is fighting this to the bitter end, as he should, and I believe that if we actually got rid of all the illegal ballots, illegitimate ballots, and fix all the issues, make no mistake, I believe Trump will flip everything. Well, flip a lot, okay? Not being literal.
I think trying to understand people's pain and their suffering is a way to start to get us on the right track.
These people are some of the most hypocritical people on the planet. What I'm witnessing here is absolute sociopathy. They're talking about understanding other people's pain. Since when in the last 4 years have Democrats, have leftists, ever understood the pain of conservatives? They don't. They do not comprehend the empathy. They think that if you're the enemy, you are to be destroyed and ruined. And I think that brings us to our greatest point in all of this. there can be no reconciliation, unity, or acceptance between the left in America and the right. And this isn't because the right is the Republicans, liberals, they're all left-wingers who voted for Trump. It isn't because they're incapable of cooperation or peace. That's what they've wanted all along. But after being attacked by the left for 4 years and tortured and slandered and threatened, that's just not gonna happen.
I think in talking to my neighbors, it's important to understand that a lot of this country has suffered in the last 4 years, and that suffering needs to be acknowledged.
So, you basically heard her. According to her, isn't it funny? Okay, let me spell this out. They're saying that they suffered these 4 years, and now that they've won, that suffering needs to be acknowledged. These people don't care about you. They don't care about your suffering. They don't even care about themselves. When Joe Biden, if he manages to, as many would say, steal this election, others would say he's won, it's still under debate, I think they're going to suffer. I think that they have no idea what they actually voted for.
And I think that in acknowledging that suffering, it's easier for us to come together and hopefully work towards a better America.
So these are the people who said they want to destroy America and everything it stands for, to destroy capitalism, and there you go. I'm just going to sum it up, folks. No. 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 There will be no reconciliation, I don't think. Maybe some people will be willing to accept, unity, but I don't believe these people actually mean what they're saying. They're just virtue signaling. The truth is, they want us all destroyed. They've said so themselves. I don't believe a single word they're saying. And I'm going to tell you, there are 71 million people in this country, in America, who voted legally. I don't know if I can say the same about the Democrats. I don't know if I can say that people all followed the rules, because everybody knows the dead vote Democrat. And all of these errors, all of these glitches, and all of these stories we've had about fraud, well, they were all for Biden. I think there is undeniable, circumstantial, and direct evidence that this election is not legitimate. It needs to be investigated. It needs to be sorted out and audited. We must remove all ballots that are ineligible or break the law or simply illegal. And I'm just going to say this right now. You're going to see these people's true colors. If Trump brings this to the Supreme Court and he wins, if he becomes president, these people are going to show you who they really are. They're going to riot and destroy, and they're going to be honest, finally. These people don't want unity. They want to rule over you while feeling like the good guys. But that, my friends, is merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? And what do you think about this issue? Are conservatives and liberals and moderates and libertarians like myself, are we simply being salty? Are we just, we're upset for no reason? Yeah, I don't think so. You let me know what you think, though, down below in the comment section. As always, your support is appreciated. You can join me on Patreon or Subscribe Store, visit my merch store, check out my sponsors, and simply share the video. Anyhow, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time. It's not over yet.
Alright everyone, it's time for a very funny video here, which is Naomi Wolf, who's a liberal commentator. She voted for Biden, and apparently she's having buyer's remorse and has professed, link in the description to a tweet she made the other day, that she wouldn't have voted for him if she had known what he had said about wanting a 3-month total national lockdown. That's very interesting. See, the thing is, I would think if you're going to vote for somebody, you want to know what their positions are on issues that you care about. For instance, I don't really know Biden's position on any issues, hence I couldn't vote for him even if I would support him otherwise, because he took both sides on most issues. He wanted to make a mask mandate, but then he also wanted to leave it to the states, just encourage them. He wants to hardline China. He'll be tough on China, but he doesn't want to be tough on China. He won't raise taxes if you're making less than $400,000, but if you look into his plan, that's fucking bullshit. The new Green Deal, he took both sides on that. Yes, I'm for it. No, I'm against it. Try to nail down an actual Biden platform. He wouldn't even when explicitly asked, he wouldn't tell people something as important and elementary as whether he would attempt to stack the Supreme Court if he's elected. Now, thankfully, right now, he's not the president-elect. He has not been confirmed as the president-elect by any meaningful network. I don't care about Fox, CNN, all those. They're in the bag anyway. The fix is in. But right now, you've got a narrowing in the results in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania. Anyone calling it for Biden at this particular moment until, at the very least, investigations conclude, if not a SCOTUS decision, is fooling themselves and jumping the gun. But here's the thing. I was speaking about this for months. Other independent commentators were. Don't you think that maybe this lack of foresight on the issue, since he openly professed what she's worrying about, he said it himself, that he wanted this lockdown. It's one of the few things he didn't waffle around on either, which should fucking concern you, because it'd cause a Great Depression. He stated it repeatedly, when queried or off the cuff. It was reported on widely by alt media. Don't you think this is another reason to drop the mainstream networks? To block out CNN and Fox and all these others? It looks like the only people that cast an informed vote during this election are people that are like using alt tech, or at the very least like edgy side of YouTube. Not people watching CNN, soccer mom networks and stuff like that. So yeah, you have buyer's remorse. Well, considering the fact that everything else is screwy in the election, can you still change your vote after the election? The Supreme Court should allow people to do that. I guarantee Trump would win at that point. Apparently, a number of people are very, very upset about this lockdown stuff. What did you expect? He told you. It's sort of like when people on the left are bitching about the Lincoln Project. Oh my God, they got $67 million. Now it looks like they're going to spend it on pro-Republican projects. But you weren't supposed to do that. They told you they were Republicans. They're just the never-Trumpers. They told you outright. They also have links to Russia through Rosatom, just so you know. They took your money. They never swore to you up and down, hey, we're going to use every penny of the money that you send to try to defeat Donald Trump. And it's certainly not to defeat Republicans. They're a Republican movement. It's made up of GOP near expats who just don't like Donald Trump, and they decided to do a little bit of conning, a little bit of a likely legal grift off on the never-Trumpers and stupid Democrats who thought that they were a liberal movement because they said Trump is evil. I congratulate them on this, by the way. You know, a fool and his money are soon parted. In Naomi Wolf's case, I feel sorry for you, dude, but you were warned. Joe Biden, did you even pay attention to what your own fucking candidate was saying? Did you even listen to his speeches? No, don't answer that question, because I guarantee that largely you didn't. See, that's the problem. He's so boring, people tuned him out. The only time they knew about Biden's positions is when some third party told them what they wanted to hear. Oh yeah, don't worry, he's not going to raise your taxes. Yes, he will, by letting the Trump tax cuts expire. You'll live to see that day if Joe Biden actually gets in there. Kamala Harris is even more nuts on the issue and wants to actually go after them directly, tear them apart before their due date. Oh, Joe Biden is going to pass a lockdown. I don't understand. I wouldn't have voted for him if I had known. How could you have not known? So many people talked about it so openly on so many platforms. Oh, wait. We all got algorithmically throttled by big tech. Oh, wait. The MSM that most of these Biden fans, these Biden babies watch, never told them. Hell, Fox won't even let the spokesperson of the White House itself talk on their network anymore. They'll cut her off. They won't even let her discuss the issue of electoral fraud. Don't you see that things are a little bit fishy and screwy right now? I certainly think so. So again, I feel sorry for you, but you were warned by commentators across the whole internet. You were told outright by the candidate himself what was going on and what he planned to do. Buyer's remorse doesn't mean anything at this point. You cast your vote, you cast it for the wrong guy. Hopefully the Supreme Court prevents that goofball from ever setting foot in the White House again. Joe Biden is uniquely disqualified. He's dementia-addled. He will cause a depression if he follows through on the one campaign promise that he made that he never countermanded. The dude is out to lunch and controlled by a cabal of billionaire multinationalists. At the end of the day, that's really what it's about. That's about all. So,
allow me to deactivate the Razorfist app for a moment. I'm concerned. I'm concerned. And I want to make clear as polished glass. It's not because of Trump. It's really not. Look, as many of you know, my candidate wasn't even originally my candidate. I mean, I'm more of a Goldwater Republican, ultimately, and so I was all over Rand Paul until he tanked his chances in the very first debate. So, look, this ain't about parochial team sports. Look, I have been politically cognizant since the late 90s. I backed winners. I backed losers. I've endured the end of the Clinton administration and all its incumbent corruption. I weathered the W dog shit with its milquetoast quasi-conservatism and omnipresent warmongering. I watched John McCain, perhaps the only man I could have possibly despised more than Barack Obama, hurl himself at a younger, more charismatic man with an actual movement, then blame his vice presidential pick for his failure, despite the fact that she was responsible for the only 15-minute period where his campaign registered a fucking pulse. I wrote in Wyatt Earp in that election, by the by, and we won't even go into the prick from the planet Kolob. I can deal with dog shit Republican losses, and when it happens, my ire is generally directly squared at my own side. That is how you grow, folks. That is how you improve and prosper. It's not that they're coming after my candidate. It's that they're coming after my vote. I know you guys are expecting a finger flip and a chair spin after I predicted in a video less than 2 months out entitled Mail-in Ballots or BS that the Arizona Senate election of 2018 was in fact the dress rehearsal for the nationwide fraud to come, in which Martha McSally was screwed out of an Arizona Senate seat, the first of what is now 2 titty fucking times, both by last-minute mail-in ballot shenanigans. And while I constantly repeated that all things being fair, Trump was cruising to a cataclysmic landslide victory, I always made sure to pair it with the phrase barring historic voter fraud, which in this case is not only possible, but also probable. I wasn't hedging my bets, folks. I did an entire video about it for a fucking reason. I am concerned because we are a society at bay and increasingly distrustful of our government, our institutions, even our fucking neighbors. We've been locked down for the better part of a damn year, denied our own jobs, future prospects, supplies, daily haunts, even the autonomy of movement by government fucking fiat, all while the same government officials bail out rioters laying waste to our communities, overlooking their disregard for social distancing, all while crowing their intent to disarm us all. There was one non-violent weapon in our arsenal. Our vote. And believe me when I say they were looking down the barrel of that weapon. Biden campaign officials even let slip days before the election that their internals were decidedly more bleak than the rosy portrait painted by Nate Shilver in the public Politburo, and so they went to work. Look to Ohio. Look to Florida, the 2 states, incidentally, with the strictest anti-mail-in ballot fraud measures on the books as a result of their struggles in the 2000 and 2004 elections and the resultant avalanche victories for Trump in said battleground states for ready confirmation of the rock slide they were attempting to avoid with this fraud. And before you hit back with, but Ohio is now a red state. Yeah, agreed. As I've said for over a decade, Ohio's been drifting red for some time, but it sure as shit was not drifting +8 fucking red when 15 days before the election, the very same media were selling it to us all as the front line in the battle for the fucking White House, to say nothing about how quickly they counted their ballots, while Pennsylvania takes like 24 hours to count 5. I guess that's what happens when you have to pause for a printing break on a bi-hourly basis. Look, the last time the twin bellwethers of Ohio and Florida didn't decide the election result was 1960, when JFK famously defrauded Nixon of the presidency. I won't bore you with all the examples of fraud with the incoming court case regardless of the results. And look, as I record this video, the media have crowned their candidate, but the actual electoral engine hasn't. I'll say this. As a rule, when Pennsylvania's AG takes to the stage to announce, "We are done counting ballots for the day because, quote, everyone is tired," then a buttload of Biden ballots show up on a USPS truck. The same postal service that endorsed Biden, by the by, in the absolute dick sack of night at 4 a.m. And suddenly, everyone's miraculously bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to tally 150,000 more fucking Biden ballots, even though mail-in ballot votes were originally, ostensibly, supposed to be counted fucking first, or when that same AG haven't already stated they'd counted over 92% of registered votes, only to turn about and say there are nearly 1 million more mail-ins to go, or roughly 12% of registered Pennsylvania voters, making the grand total come out to, 104% fucking turnout, which, by the way, explains the Fox News chyrons that kept glitching and putting 105%. Folks, That ain't a fucking glitch. They all tap into the same vote counting network, which happens to be tallied by computer, meaning even the AI crunched the numbers and detected Pennsylvania's election theft bullshit. Or when perennial white guy Joe Biden pulls a higher percentage of the black vote in Detroit than the first black president, Barack Obama. Folks, I'm sorry. I know it's a solemn occasion, but I can never get it out without laughing. It's that ridiculous. They have that little respect for your intelligence that they would not only commit voter fraud, but do it in the iPhone generation in front of rolling video cameras while winking and flipping you the fucking bird. Or when 15 minutes after the fraudmobile pulled up to PA at 4 a.m., the same happened in seeming unison in Wisconsin and Michigan, the fucking trifecta of fraud allegations in this election. Yeah, gang, you might have a fucking issue here. But this ain't a rant about the fraud, believe it or not. It's not even really a rant at all. It's a supplication to anyone at all with sanity, a society already on the brink, disabused of dignity and agency, whose final weapon was the vote. Having that vote abrogated outright, do you have any idea what this sad, doomed attempt to retain the levers of power could cost us all? I think Styx put it best when he said, no matter which horse you back here, no matter which way it shakes out, at least half of the country will declare a sitting president illegitimate. Not in a cutesy mainstream media, less than 15% of the country actually believe it while the rest roll their eyes and move the fuck on with their lives Marussia kind of way, but in a real, holy shit, this guy just stole my vote and then laughed in my face about it, and oh hey, my local congressman, my county recorder, and fucking mailman went ahead and helped them do it, sort of way. The kind that can't end any way but bad. And get used to the phrase baseless voter fraud allegations, by the way. It always takes the DNC a few days to find a sufficient counter smear, and it looks like they finally settled on one. But anyone with eyes just ain't buying it. You can opine to your heart's content as to what really went on here to expose the fraud on such a nationwide level. Some are currently speculating the original plan was to throw it to the Supreme Court, but Ginsburg's death threw a spanner in the works, which is why after pushing for mail-in ballots for, half a fucking year, Nancy Pelosi suddenly did an about-face and started trash-talking them around late September. Personally, I think inexpertise at fixing national elections may have played a role, given that it's so much easier, cheaper, and sadly legal to fix a primary instead. Ask Bernie. Ask him twice, in fact. Speculate away. That's about all you can actually do in our opaque political system. As for what happens next, I could fill 15 videos with just that, and who knows, maybe I'll fucking have to. Trump has been reelected. Not is going to be, has. I broke it down a little on my recent Lord of the Rings stream, but Pennsylvania mail-in ballots received after Election Day have already, per court order, been set aside not for recount, but for a formal fucking audit. Meaning each individual ballot, including the ones filled out in early September by fucking dead guys, will have to be individually assessed for signature and chain of custody and discarded or accepted thereby. And incidentally, I'd argue they should audit the rest as fucking well. Absentee ballot fraud usually comes in two big bursts. An individual wave based on internal polling data, and if the election day vote comes in strong for the Republican, as it absolutely did for Trump here, a final fuck-off wave of bullshit ballots to put the Democrat on top and conveniently outside the margin of a mandatory recount. And look, even if that falls through, it goes to the conservative majority Supreme Court at that time. And even if that falls through, it goes to the House. No, not the Democrat majority Nancy Pelosi House. The overwhelmingly Republican majority state House delegation. And that's if we hit the December 14th deadline. Still biting down on that black pill? Put it this way. At the exact same time, the media, not the official organ of election law, was crowning their own president effectively, as Scott Adams predicted they would, by the way. Do you know what Trump was doing? Golf. Gang, he warned you about this, just like I did. He knows. This is not about ushering in Biden's first term. It's about undermining the legitimacy of Trump's second. Look, a lot can happen in 2 months, especially in this election cycle. Something could certainly emerge that prevents him from being victorious. But anyway it shakes out, the days of McCain, the days of Romney are well the fuck in the rearview mirror here. And this motherfucker is actually gonna fucking fight. Are you gonna run from the ramparts now that a second victory means you also get to expose the fuckers who pulled this fraud and stole your vote? Call it cope all you like, but Fucking please, Jesus, find a new fucking word. You people ran that copium shit in the ground so fast, Biden banned it for fracking. Herb, derb, copium, fucking snowflake, seethe, 404 error, wit and originality not found. I get that half the turds on Twitter are actually hired share blue shills paid to trigger a public opinion preference cascade, but like, could you get more than one staff writer for your fucking dialogue here? I've seen fresher material on season 32 of The fucking Simpsons. Yes, Boomer, they're up to 32 now. We'll all be dead soon anyway. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed. It was these early ballots that reversed the 2018 Senate election result and handed Arizona its first Democratic senator in decades. And if they get their way in 2020, Chairman Mark Kelly plans to do the same with the second seat. Hell, a major Democratic polling firm is already setting the table for a national macrocosm of the microcosmic Arizona Senate election idiocy of 2018, cautioning that Trump may receive a, quote, landslide victory in 2020 that will promptly be fucking reversed by magical mail-in ballots. They're already priming the pump, folks. I said at the time, and I've warned habitually since, tiny flyover state or fucking not, the Arizona Senate election in 2018 was the dress rehearsal for the DNC's national strategy in 2020.
Wait for it.
Fuck you, I was right! Fuck you, I was right! Fuck you, I was right!
In all the excitement among objective journalists for Joe Biden's declared victory, reporters are missing how extraordinary the Democrats' performance was in the 2020 election. It's not just that the former vice president is on track to become the oldest president in American history, it's what he managed to accomplish at the polls this year. Candidate Joe Biden was so effective at animating voters in 2020 that he received a record number of votes. In fact, more than 15 million more than Barack Obama received in his re-election in 2012. Amazingly, he managed to secure victory while also losing in almost every bellwether county across the country. No presidential candidate has been capable of such election jiu-jitsu until now. While Joe Biden underperformed Hillary Clinton's 2016 totals in every urban county in the United States, he outperformed her in the metropolitan areas of Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Let's take a quick commercial break to pay some bills. Murders in certain parts of the country like Los Angeles have increased 20% this year. It's dangerous out there, and I'm personally not taking any chances. That's why I have a Fighter Flare flashlight. The Fighter Flare flashlight is the only tactical flashlight I trust with my life. It's the perfect mix of a personal protection tool and a survival tool. Plus, it's solar powered so you never have to worry about wires or batteries. A good tactical flashlight is powerful enough to have enough brightness to blind an attacker, durable enough to handle getting dropped, thrown, or smashed, and reliable enough to never stop working even in the harshest environments. The Fighter Flare flashlight comes with all of this and more. It is the ultimate professional-grade tactical ultra-bright flashlight. Get the Fighter Flare flashlight at www.fighterflare.com or click the link in the description box. You'll get 30% off in celebration of Black Friday with promo code CR30. Get yours today. I highly recommend it. Even more surprising, the former VP put up a record haul of votes despite Democrats' general failures in local House and state legislative seats across the nation. He accomplished all this after receiving a record low share of the primary vote compared to his Republican opponent heading into the general election. Clearly, these are tremendous and unexpected achievements that would normally receive sophisticated analysis from the journalist class, but have somehow gone mostly unmentioned during the celebrations at news studios in New York City and Washington, D.C. The massive national political realignment now taking place may be one source of these surprising upsets. Yet still, to have pulled so many rabbits out of his hat like this, nobody can deny that Biden is a first-rate campaigner and politician, the likes of which America has never before seen. So let's break down just how unique his political voodoo has been in 2020. First things first, 80 million votes. Holy moly, a lot of Americans turned out for a Washington politician who's been in office for nearly 50 years. Consider this. No incumbent president in nearly a century and a half has gained votes in a re-election campaign and still lost. President Trump gained more than 10 million votes since his 2016 victory, but Biden's appeal was so substantial that it overcame President Trump's record support among minority voters. Biden also shattered Barack Obama's own popular vote totals, really calling into question whether it was not perhaps Biden who pulled Obama across the finish line in 2008 and 2012. Proving just how sharp his political instincts are, the former VP managed to gather a record number of votes while consistently trailing President Trump in measures of voter enthusiasm. Biden was so savvy that he motivated voters unenthusiastic about his campaign to vote for him in record numbers. The second thing all Biden supporters should be super proud of is winning despite losing most bellwether counties. Biden is set to become the first president in 60 years to lose the state of Ohio and Florida on his way to election. For a century, these states have consistently predicted the national outcome, and they have been considered roughly representative of the American melting pot as a whole. Despite national polls giving Biden a lead in both states, he lost Ohio by 8 points and Florida by more than 3. Aww. For Biden to lose these key bellwethers by notable margins and still win the national election is noteworthy. Not since the mafia allegedly aided John F. Kennedy in winning Illinois over Richard Nixon in 1960 has an American president pulled off this neat trick. Even more unbelievable, Biden is on his way to winning the White House after having lost almost every historical bellwether county across the country. The Wall Street Journal and the Epoch Times independently analyzed the results of 19 counties across the United States that have nearly perfect presidential voting records over the past 40 years. President Trump won every single bellwether county except Clallam County in Washington. Whereas the former VP picked up Clallam by about 3 points, President Trump's margin of victory in the other 18 counties averaged over 16 points. In a larger list of 58 bellwether counties that have correctly picked the president since 2000, Trump won 51 of them by an average of 15 points, while the other 7 went to Biden by around 4 points. Bellwether counties overwhelmingly chose President Trump, but Biden found a path to victory anyway. Now the third thing on our list of odd achievements that make Biden so darn special. Biden trailed Clinton except in a select few cities. Patrick Bashman, a pollster with an accurate track record and the director of the Democracy Institute in D.C., highlighted 2 observations made by fellow colleagues, polling guru Richard Barris of Big Data Poll and Washington Post election analyst Robert Barnes. Barnes noted a statistical oddity from 2020's election returns. Quote, Biden underperformed Hillary Clinton in every major metro area around the country except for Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. Barnes added that in those, quote, big cities and swing states ran by Democrats, the vote even exceeded the number of registered voters. Wow, Joe Biden is good. In the states that mattered most, so many mail-in ballots poured in for Biden from the cities that he put up record-breaking numbers and overturned state totals that looked like comfortable leads for President Trump. So if Democrats succeed in eliminating the Electoral College, Biden's magic formula for churning out overwhelming vote totals in a handful of cities should make the Democrats unbeatable from now on. Now the fourth magic trick that should make all Democrat voters so proud is that Biden won despite Democrats losing everywhere else. Randy DeSoto noted in the Western Journal that, quote, Donald Trump was pretty much the only incumbent president in U.S. history to lose his re-election while his own party gained seats in the House of Representatives. Now that's a Biden miracle. In 2020, the Cook Political Report and the New York Times rated 27 House seats as toss-ups going into Election Day. Right now, Republicans appear to have won all 27. Democrats failed to flip a single state House chamber, while Republicans flipped both the House and Senate in New Hampshire and expanded their dominance of state legislatures across the country. Christina Polizzi, a spokesperson for the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, went so far as to state, quote, it's clear that President Trump isn't an anchor for the Republican legislative candidates. He's a buoy. Amazingly, Biden beat the guy who lifted all other Republicans to victory. Now that's historic. Now here's the fifth and final reason why Democrat voters should be so proud of their candidate. Biden overcame Trump's commanding primary vote. Now in the past, primary vote totals have been remarkably accurate in predicting general election wins. Political analyst David Chapman highlighted 3 historical facts before the election. First, no incumbent who has received 75% of the total primary vote has lost re-election. Second, President Trump received 94% of the primary vote, which is the fourth highest of all time, higher than Dwight Eisenhower, Nixon, Clinton, and even Barack Hussein Obama. In fact, Trump is the only one of 5 incumbents since 1912 to receive more than 90% of the primary vote. That's a long time ago, geez. Third, Trump set a record for most primary votes received by an incumbent when more than 18 million people turned out for him in 2020. The previous record held by Bill Clinton was half that number. For Biden to prevail in the general election despite Trump's historical support in the primaries turns a century's worth of prior election data on its head. I told you guys, Joe Biden is super good. Joe Biden achieved the impossible. No, he didn't. And anyone who is willing to set aside all these statistics I've tried to make light of in this video and just move on with their lives are ignorant and lazy. Wake up, people, before it's too late. Most of this came by way of The Federalist. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everybody for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.
Hey everyone! Given the absolute chaos of the past week, I think we can all agree that it's been the week from hell, and to be honest, because so much has happened just every single day, like thousands of new things, it's difficult even to know where to begin, but let's go ahead and dive in anyway and focus only on the most important points. First of all, despite what our mainstream media overlords are telling us, this election is far from over. On Monday, Attorney General William Barr authorized federal prosecutors to pursue substantial allegations of voting irregularities before the 2020 presidential election is certified. Biden's team is apparently considering legal action to force a formal transition of power, but Trump hasn't given up yet. He recently tweeted that we are making big progress. Results start to come in next week. So from here on out, it is a legal battle. The mainstream media, big tech, and the left in general, they are currently trying to paint Trump as some kind of tyrant who can't accept that he lost the election and who is desperately and forcibly trying to cling to power. However, Trump is well within his right to challenge this legally, and we are under absolutely no obligation to accept Joe Biden as our president-elect unless, after every single legal recourse has been exhausted, no voter fraud is able to be found, and Trump concedes. This isn't some kind of cope. This isn't some kind of temper tantrum being thrown by the right. If it was, the right would be acting as the left has been acting over the past several months and rioting in the streets. But that's not what the right is doing at all. Instead, we are asking sincere questions and opening reasonable investigations over very real concerns that we have regarding the legitimacy of this election. We've already seen several instances of alleged fraud. For example, an election fraud lawsuit was filed in Detroit with affidavits alleging backdating ballots, no matching signatures. It includes an affidavit from a city employee claiming she was asked to backdate ballots. In another sworn affidavit, a whistleblower with the Clark County Elections Department in Nevada claims Nevada poll workers fabricated proof of residence data for illegal voters. Now, obviously, these claims in themselves, they don't prove that there was mass voter fraud, but there very well might have been, and only time will tell. But I just have to say, isn't it so rich that the left is freaking out, absolutely losing their minds over the fact that we're simply asking questions and opening up investigations after they spent 4 long years of denying the legitimacy of Donald Trump's win?
Trump, Putin, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian, metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
And now suddenly in 2020, there's absolutely no way that America can had ever experienced a rigged election. Another claim that's being made is that no president in modern history has ever before refused to concede an election. But this is untrue. In the 2000 presidential election between Al Gore and George Bush, there was a recount of Florida, and Al Gore didn't end up conceding until December 13th. At the moment, Biden is calling for peace and unity amongst the American people. But is this really what the left wants? Or is it more that they want us to simply drop our concerns, give up the fight, and to submit or else? Because the latter seems to be the message coming from some of his most prominent supporters. Jake Tapper says, "I truly sympathize with those dealing with losing. It's not easy. But at a certain point, one has to think not only about what's best for the nation, peaceful transfer of power, but how any future employers might see your character defined during adversity." Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, "Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future." And Michael Simon replied to her tweet saying, "Yes, we are. The Trump Accountability Project. Every administration staffer, campaign staffer, bundler, lawyer who represented them, everyone." And Jennifer Rubin says, "Any are, meaning Republicans, now promoting rejection of an election or calling to not follow the will of the voters or making baseless allegations of fraud should never serve in office, join a corporate board, find a faculty position, or be accepted into polite society. We have a list." I'm sorry, but how dare these absolute scumbags threaten millions of Americans like this? I, for one, I have had it. I have had it with their lies, their condescending attitudes, and their threats. They can get bent. Ultimately, whether Trump wins or he loses, there is a silver lining to the way this election has gone down, because it's completely exposed all of the backstabbers and fair-weather friends in the GOP, Trump's base, and media outlets like Fox News. The chips have fallen, and now we know for sure where these people stand, and we're not going to be fooled by them again. Another silver lining is that we can clearly see how far from alone we are. We're not some fringe portion of the public. Over 70 million people casted a vote for Trump, not just because they support Trump, but because they outright reject the left. So even if Joe Biden does win in the end, even if he institutes a new lockdown, starts more wars in the Middle East, revokes Trump's executive order on banning critical race theory training in the executive government, and so on, we're certainly not done for. We're certainly not going to throw in the towel and just give up. We're going to fight on as always. But at the moment, what's most important is to stand strong in support of making sure that this election is legitimate. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about Trump, and it's not about Democrats versus Republicans either. The only thing that it's about is ensuring that we've had a fair and free election in the United States. Some of the best things we can do right now are to, of course, stay calm, positive, and patient. Since the mainstream media has completely dropped the ball and big tech is actively censoring Trump, we can do our best to spread the facts about what's happening on our social media accounts. We can attend some of the hundreds of rallies that are happening all around the country, and more than anything, I really wish I could join you in this. But most importantly, now more than ever, we have to pray. Pray for America, for Trump, and a just outcome to this election. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. For those of you who are interested, I've been posting a lot of election-related updates on my Instagram account and my Telegram account, and you can find links to both of those in the pinned comment or the description of this video. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you all soon.